Chapter 2378. He's here. Yi Xian raised his head to look at the sky. In the distance, time and space suddenly split open and a black-robed elder slowly walked out. The moment the black-robed elder walked out, the entire space trembled and became illusory. An expert half a step into the divine transformation realm. As soon as the elder appeared, a wave of coercion swept down from the sky like a tidal wave. The powerful coercion was like the weight of a mountain, instantly stifling the breath of countless experts present. Everyone was shocked. This was an expert from the Yang clan? How terrifying! The clan elder and Zhong Shou, on the other hand, were laughing maniacally with excitement. Yi Xian released his human realm's sword will, which easily blocked the elder's coercion. He glanced at the black-robed elder but did not say anything. Below, the elder, Zhong Shou, and the experts of the clan looked as if they had seen their savior. The Yang clan. The clan elder hurriedly bowed deeply. Greetings, Your Honor. Zhong Shou and the others all bowed, their expressions filled with respect. The black-robed elder's expression was calm as his gaze fell on Yi Xian. Are you the one who looked down on the Yang clan? Yi Xian did not waste any time. He opened his palm and a stream of bloodline power surged from it. In an instant, the coercion of his bloodline shrouded the area. It was extremely powerful. He naturally had to reveal his identity. After all, he was the young master of the Yang clan. He could not possibly cause a misunderstanding with the experts of the Yang clan, right? Wouldn't that be stupid? Seeing the power of Yi Xian's bloodline, the black-robed elder frowned. What do you mean? Hearing this, Yi Xian was stunned. You don't recognize my bloodline? The black-robed elder sneered. Should an old man recognize your bloodline? Yi Xian was silent. Something was wrong. This guy did not recognize his crazy demon bloodline. This was not normal. Could it be that he was not from the Yang clan? Could it be that he was mistaken? Yi Xian was puzzled. Meanwhile, the black-robed old man spoke coldly. Young man, do you know that my Yang clan is protecting this clan? Yi Xian collected his thoughts. He glanced at the black-robed elder and asked, is the Yang clan's patriarch the green-robed sword master? The black-robed old man furrowed his brows as a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. How do you know about the sword master? Hearing this, Yi Xian's face darkened. Since you're from the Yang clan, why don't you recognize me? The black-robed old man narrowed his eyes. I'm from the Yang clan, so I have to know you. Who do you think you are? Yi Xian glanced at the black-robed elder, then opened his palm, and Xiao Ta appeared in his hand. Do you recognize this item? The black-robed elder shook his head. I've never seen him before. Yi Xian was speechless. Xiao Ta suddenly sighed in a low voice. Young master, this guy is probably just a small fry from the Yang clan. Don't ask him. He doesn't even know you and me. Just lay your cards on the table. Yi Xian thought for a moment and nodded. He looked at the black-robed elder. Have you seen the green-robed sword master? The black-robed elder sneered. Of course. Yi Xian looked at the black-robed elder. Don't you think I look very similar to him? The black-robed elder sized up Yi Xian. The next moment, he flew into a rage. Brat, you actually want to trick me. Why? Are you trying to say that you're the son of the green-robed sword master? What a joke. Who doesn't know that the sword master only has one daughter? How dare you? Yi Xian's expression froze. Xiao Ta sighed in a low voice. Tragedy. What a tragedy. The black-robed elder suddenly flicked his sleeves. A terrifying force directly shook towards Yi Xian. From afar, Yi Xian frowned. He rushed forward and slashed down with his sword. Chi! The sword light directly tore that terrifying force into pieces. Seeing this scene, the black-robed elder frowned. You're a swordsman. Yi Xian's face was expressionless. I suggest you contact the Yang clan. The black-robed elder said fiercely, "You think you're worthy of my Yang clan's top experts?" Yi Xian felt a headache coming on. "Can you not be so stubborn? Will it kill you to contact them? You." The black-robed elder did not give him a chance to speak. He directly rushed towards him. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian's expression gradually turned cold. He opened his palm and the green profound sword in his hand flew out. Rumble. The sword light shattered. The black-robed elder was directly sent flying hundreds of feet away. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly grabbed a dayabi and waved it. Chi! The tip of a brush flashed across the field. The black-robed old man's pupils constricted, and then he pressed his palms together while swiftly chanting. In the next moment, he suddenly raised his head, and then a ray of black light swept out from within him and collided with the dayabi's attack. Bang! Along with an explosion, countless rays of black light shattered while the black-robed old man was blasted 3 kilometers away. As soon as he stopped moving, the green profound sword slashed down towards him. A wisp of astonishment flashed through the black-robed old man's eyes. He opened his palm, and a spear appeared in his grasp. With a shake of his wrist, the spear stabbed forward like a thunderclap. Bang! The black-robed old man's spear stabbed directly onto Yi Xian's green profound sword. The entire sect dimension trembled violently, and then it swiftly became illusory. Meanwhile, the spear in the black-robed old man's hand suddenly shattered into pieces that covered the sky. Rumble. At the instant that the spear shattered, the black-robed old man was blasted 3 kilometers away. As soon as he stopped moving, his arms split apart. At the same time, the green profound sword pierced through the center of his forehead. All of a sudden, the entire place fell silent. The old man and the sect leader, Zhong Shou, looked at Yi Xian in disbelief. Meanwhile, the black-robed old man was stunned as well. He was a half-step divine transformation realm cultivator, yet he'd actually lost to a young man at the ancient god realm? The black-robed old man's voice trembled as he said, "That's impossible." Yi Xian's face remained expressionless as he flicked his sleeve. Bang! The black-robed old man's body was instantly destroyed. Right when the black-robed old man's soul was about to be completely destroyed, he suddenly took out a command token, and then the command token transformed into a ray of light that shot into the sky. Yi Xian glanced at the command token with a calm expression. Call for help? The black-robed old man stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Yes. Yi Xian nodded. Then let's do it. The black-robed old man glanced at the dayabi on Yi Xian's waist and sneered. So you're relying on the dayabi? Let me tell you, the Yang clan is not afraid of the dayabi. Even if the dayabi himself came, he would have to crawl in front of the Yang clan. Yi Xian was speechless. F***CK. The dayabi suddenly said, "Can I kill him?" Yi Xian said calmly, "Didn't you say that you can't make a move at will?" After a moment of silence, the dayabi said, "I can't make a move at will. I'll make arrangements for him." Yi Xian was speechless. In the distance, the black-robed old man wanted to say something, but Yi Xian suddenly flicked his sleeves and a sword plunged into the old man's mouth. The old man swallowed the words he was about to say. Yi Xian looked at the black-robed old man and said, "Shut up." The black-robed old man was speechless. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian suddenly turned to look at the distant old man. At this moment, the old man's soul and body were growing dimmer and dimmer. Yi Xian frowned. "Can't you stop burning your soul?" The old man was speechless. Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Young lord, do you think everyone is like you? Burning your soul like it's a game that can be stopped at will? Once the soul is ignited, it can't be stopped." Yi Xian glanced at the old man. "Then you can slowly die." The old man suddenly laughed. His laughter was crazy. "Yi Xian, do you think you're invincible just because you have the dayabi's support? Let me tell you, the Yang clan's strength is beyond your imagination. Just as the senior said, even if you have Dayabi's true body, the Yang clan wouldn't fear you, much less Dayabi's clone." Dayabi was speechless. Yi Xian didn't say anything. The old man snarled, Yi Xian, I will die without a doubt. But let me tell you, before I die, I will make sure you die first. Yi Xian nodded. All right. At this time, a terrifying aura suddenly swept over from the depths of the starry sky above their heads. Soon, the entire galaxy began to boil. They're here. At this time, the old man suddenly burst into laughter. His laughter was extremely deranged. They're here. The true experts of the Yang clan have arrived. Yi Xian looked into the depths of the starry sky. At that moment, an invisible pressure had already crushed down on him. This pressure far exceeded that of the soul transformation realm. Merely a strand of pressure caused countless people in the surroundings to feel suffocated. Too powerful. Meanwhile, a middle-aged man appeared here. An expert who had surpassed the divine transformation realm. The black-robed old man suddenly knelt down slowly when he saw this middle-aged man, and he said with a trembling voice, Envoy Zhang. The middle-aged man ignored the black-robed elder. He walked slowly towards Yi Xian and knelt down in front of everyone. Emissary Zhang, the person in charge of the high god Cosmos, greets the young master. Young master. As soon as these words were spoken, the surroundings instantly became deathly silent. 7017K. Chapter 2379. Young master. Hearing Emissary Zhang's words, the black-robed old man and the sect master old man were petrified on the spot. In the distance, Yi Xian looked at Emissary Zhang. You know me? Emissary Zhang nodded and said respectfully, Of course, I am the Yang clan's young master, how could I not know you? Yi Xian pointed at the black-robed old man in the distance. Why doesn't he know me? Emissary Zhang smiled bitterly. He isn't from my Yang clan. Hearing this, Yi Xian frowned. He isn't from the Yang clan? Emissary Zhang nodded. He is just a small character from one of my Yang clan's vassal forces. He has nothing to do with my Yang clan. Yi Xian looked at the black-robed old man. The black-robed old man said with a trembling voice, Emissary Zhang, is he really the young master? Emissary Zhang was expressionless. Do you think I like to kneel to people? The black-robed old man's expression froze. After a moment, he turned to look at Yi Xian and smiled bitterly. Young master, since you are the Yang clan's young master, why didn't you say so earlier? Yi Xian smiled. Didn't I say so? I said so. And how did you answer me? Your answer was that the sword master only has a daughter, no son. This is what you said, right? The black-robed old man, Yi Xian looked at the sect master old man. At this moment, the old man's soul had already been burnt transparent, like a wisp of smoke. It would disappear with the wind at any time. The old man looked at Yi Xian. Is it interesting? Is it interesting? Yi Xian smiled lightly, turned and left. Behind him, Emissary Zhang was silent for a moment. He suddenly raised his right hand. The next moment, 10 terrifying auras suddenly appeared in the field. Emissary Zhang was expressionless. Slaughter. With that, he followed Yi Xian in the distance. Behind him, the old man roared, Yi Xian, I curse you. I curse you to die a horrible death. I curse your Yang clan to die. Tendo is clear. It's not that I won't avenge you. It's just that the time has not come yet. If you don't believe me, look up. Who did Tendo spare? You. Boom. A bolt of divine lightning suddenly struck the top of the old man's head, and the old man was directly erased. After a while, a voice suddenly sounded from the depths of the distant starry sky. My Tendo clan declares that my Tendo clan has no evil intentions towards the Yang clan. This person's words have nothing to do with my Tendo clan. I hope young Master Yi can understand. Clan. When Yi Xian returned to Celestial Treasure City, Envoy Zhang followed beside him. As he looked at Yi Xian, Envoy Zhang was very cautious. At the moment, he was feeling very uneasy, because he didn't know if Yi Xian would blame him. Yi Xian turned to look at Emissary Zhang and smiled. Aren't you going? Emissary Zhang hesitated for a moment and said, I'll stay here and listen to young Master Ye's orders. Actually, the Yang clan had ordered that he couldn't take the initiative to help Yi Xian unless he was in a life-threatening situation. The reason why he chose to stay was because he had a selfish motive. If he wanted to climb up, the best way was to follow Yi Xian. To him, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Therefore, he decided to take the risk and stay. As long as he had a good relationship with Yi Xian, who in the Yang clan would dare to punish him in the future? If he had a good relationship with Yi Xian, he would be able to ascend to the 9 heavens. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Are you at the divine transformation realm?" Emissary Zhang shook his head, "I'm at the superior god realm." Yi Xian frowned slightly, "Superior god?" Emissary Zhang nodded, "The realm above the divine transformation realm is the superior god realm. Because I'm in charge of a special grade universe, I have the power of faith of a special grade universe. Therefore, I'm a superior god." Yi Xian was a little curious, special grade universe? Emissary Zhang nodded, "It has more than 1 billion living beings, and most of them are very strong." As he said this, he paused and said, "Being a superior god is a threshold. It's too difficult for an ordinary person to become a superior god. Of course, that's for us. In the Yang clan, a mere superior god is nothing." Yi Xian blinked, "In the Yang clan, a superior god is nothing?" Emissary Zhang nodded, "Yes." Yi Xian was a little curious, "What level are you at in the Yang clan?" Emissary Zhang smiled bitterly, "Let's put it this way. If the Yang clan is compared to a huge empire, then I'm like a small village chief in a remote mountain village." Yi Xian was silent. Small village chief. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. It seemed that the force created by his father was much stronger than he had imagined. Go back to inherit the family property? As soon as this idea appeared, he rejected it himself. Although he was a second-generation heir, his ultimate goal was to be a first-generation heir. Emissary Zhang said again, "Young master, do you want to return to the clan? If you do, I can contact the higher-ups." Yi Xian shook his head, "Not for the time being." Emissary Zhang nodded slightly, "Okay." Yi Xian said, "I'll cultivate for a while, Emissary Zhang quickly said, "I'll protect you, young master." Yi Xian glanced at Emissary Zhang and smiled, "Okay." After saying this, he entered the starry cultivation ground. As soon as he entered the starry cultivation ground, Wenren Lan appeared in front of him. Yi Xian looked at Wenren Lan. At this moment, Wenren Lan had reached the divine transformation realm. Divine transformation realm. Wenren also appeared in the field. Yi Xian said with a smile, "Ms. Lan, congratulations." Wenren Lan nodded slightly, "I'm the one thanking you." Yi Xian smiled, "You should be the youngest divine transformation realm expert in the history of the Wenren clan, right?" Wenren Lan shook her head, "My ancestor is stronger than me." Yi Xian was slightly curious, "The ancestor of the Wenren clan?" Wenren Lan nodded, "The ancestor of the Wenren clan was extremely talented, much stronger than me." Yi Xian smiled, "You're very strong too." Wenren Lan looked at Yi Xian, "Merely being at the divine transformation realm isn't enough to become the patriarch. However, if I go back now, my status will be completely different from before." Yi Xian nodded and didn't say anything. Wenren Lan said in a low voice, "If I become the patriarch of the Wenren clan, what do you want me to do for you?" Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "Open an academy in the Wenren clan, or allow my academy to recruit students in the Wenren clan." Wenren Lan looked at Yi Xian, "That's it?" Yi Xian nodded. Wenren Lan nodded, "Okay." As she spoke, she seemed to have thought of something, and then she glanced outside. "What is that person outside to you?" Yi Xian was stunned, and then he smiled, "You mean Emissary Zhang?" Wenren Lan nodded. Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said with a smile, "My father's subordinate." Wenren Lan looked straight at Yi Xian, "Which clan are you from?" Yi Xian smiled, "The Yang clan." Wenren Lan frowned, and she turned to look at Wenren Ren. Wenren Ren shook her head. Yi Xian was curious, "Haven't you heard of it?" Wenren Lan shook her head, "Never." Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, the Upper Divinity Realm, have you heard of it? Wenren Lan's pupils suddenly constricted. The Upper Divinity Realm, your father is from the Upper Divinity Realm. Yi Xian said, you know about the Upper Divinity Realm? Wenren Lan nodded with a rather solemn expression. The Upper Divinity Realm is a super universe, and there are real Upper Divinity Realm experts in that universe. Do you know about the Upper Divinity Realm? Yi Xian shook his head. Wenren Lan said in a low voice, it's very terrifying. No, not to mention the Upper Divinity Realm, even a half-step Divinity Realm expert is very, very terrifying. After the Divine Transformation Realm, there are 9 tiers, and beyond the 5th tier is the half-step Divinity Realm. In our place, the strongest expert is in the 6th tier of the Divine Transformation Realm, but in the Upper Divinity Realm, there are real Upper Divinity Realm experts. As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian. Is the Yang clan a big clan in the Upper Divinity Realm? Yi Xian was silent. He didn't know how to answer this question, because if he told the truth, he would be suspected of being pretentious. At this time, Wenren Lan sized up Yi Xian, and then she said, I didn't expect you to be from the Upper Divinity Realm. Yi Xian said with a smile, what are your plans now? Wenren Lan fell silent for a moment, and then she turned to look at Wenren, big sister, what are your plans? Wenren looked at Yi Xian and smiled, young Master Yi, I want to go directly to your Guanxian Academy. Although I'm not that strong, should be able to help a little. Yi Xian smiled, you're welcome. Wenren was an ancestor god, and she wasn't weak at all to the current Guanxian Academy. What Guanxian Academy lacked the most were experts. After all, Qing Qiu was only one person, and she still needed some help. Wenren smiled when she heard Yi Xian, young Master Yi, if I go to your academy, the Nantian clan might not let it go. You have to be mentally prepared. Yi Xian was about to speak, but he suddenly frowned. At this moment, Wenren looked into the distance, the Nantian clan is here. Nantian clan? Yi Xian frowned. Right at this moment, Emissary Zhang appeared behind Yi Xian, and he looked into the depths of the starry sky with a calm expression. Wenren Lan, who stood in front of Yi Xian, took a deep look at Emissary Zhang, and a wisp of seriousness flashed in her eyes. She couldn't sense Emissary Zhang's realm, but her intuition told her that he was terrifying. Bang! At this moment, the starry sky above them suddenly transformed into a huge vortex, and soon, a man walked out slowly from it. The Soul Formation Realm. When the man walked out, Wenren suddenly frowned. It was obvious that she knew him. Wenren Lan's face sank. The man in front of her was the Nantian clan's prince, Nantian Yen. After Nantian Yen appeared, he gently flicked his sleeve with his right hand, and the vortex behind him was directly erased, and the starry sky returned to normal. Nantian Yen glanced at Wenren below, his face expressionless. The next moment, he turned his head to look at Yi Xian, who was next to him. You're Yi Xian? Yi Xian nodded. Nantian Yen stared at Yi Xian. I heard that you like to meddle in other people's business. As he spoke, an invisible wave of pressure swept towards Yi Xian who was down below. Yi Xian frowned slightly and was about to make a move, but at this moment, Emissary Zhang suddenly spread out his right hand and gently pressed it down. Thump. Under everyone's shocked gaze, Nantian Yan's legs went soft and he knelt down. Emissary Zhang looked at Nantian Yan, whose face was full of fear, with a calm expression. You have to kneel to talk to my young master, understand? Everyone, Yi Xian. 7017K. Chapter 2380. Kneeling. Nantian Yan just knelt there. No matter how he resisted, it was useless. At this moment, Nantian Yan was extremely shocked. He was a cultivator in the Divine Transformation realm, but he couldn't even resist this middle-aged man. How was this possible? He looked incredulous. Wenren Lan and her sister also looked incredulous, especially Wenren Lan. She knew that this middle-aged man was strong, but she didn't know he was this strong. With a wave of his hand, an expert in the divine transformation realm knelt. This was at least a half-step supreme deity. At this time, Nantian Yen looked at Emissary Zhang and said in a deep voice, "You are?" Emissary Zhang did not answer. He retreated half a step behind Yi Xian. Seeing this, Nantian Yen looked at Yi Xian again. "Who are you?" Yi Xian smiled slightly. "Yi Xian, the dean of Guanxian Academy." Nantian Yen stared at Yi Xian, not knowing what he was thinking. Yi Xian turned to Emissary Zhang and said with a smile, "Let him stand up and talk." Emissary Zhang immediately nodded. "Okay." With that, he flicked his sleeve, and the terrifying power on Nantian Yen suddenly disappeared. After Nantian Yen stood up, he took a deep look at Emissary Zhang. In addition to seriousness, there was also fear in his eyes. Yi Xian smiled and said, "How should I address you, sir?" Nantian Yen withdrew his gaze and looked at Yi Xian. "Nantian Yen of the Nantian clan." Yi Xian nodded and was about to speak when Nantian Yen said in a deep voice, "Sir, the Nantian clan has no enmity with you. Why are you meddling?" Yi Xian turned to look at Wenren Lan. "She doesn't like you." Nantian Yen nodded. "I know she doesn't like me, but she is engaged to me. Do you think it's appropriate for her to fall in love with another man while we are still engaged?" Yi Xian thought about it and shook his head. "No." Nantian Yen was slightly stunned. Was this guy so reasonable? Yi Xian continued, "It's indeed inappropriate for me to fall in love with someone else when I'm engaged to you. This is her fault, but she has already paid the price for her mistake." Nantian Yen fell silent. Yi Xian still wanted to say something, but Nantian Yen suddenly said, "Since young Master Yi has spoken, then I naturally won't pursue the matter any further. I'll give young Master Yi face." Yi Xian was silent. With this guy's words, it became like he owed him a favor. Speechless. Nantian Yen suddenly looked at Wenren and said, "Miss Yi, the grudge between us is settled today. Let's both live in peace." After saying that, he looked at Yi Xian, "Young Master Yi, if you have time, please come to the Nantian clan as a guest." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Definitely." Nantian Yen smiled, "Farewell." After saying that, he turned and disappeared at the end of the starry sky. Yi Xian looked at the end of the sky and chuckled. Then he turned to Wenren and said, "You're really free now." Wenren looked at Yi Xian and said, "Thank you." Yi Xian smiled and said, "You're welcome." After saying that, he looked at Wenren Lan and asked, "Are you going back to the clan now?" Wenren Lan nodded, "If I go back now, I'll definitely be put in an important position. However, I'm not sure if I can become the clan leader. After all, my father hasn't died yet." "Oh, no, he hasn't retired." Hearing that, Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. She was really a filial daughter. Wenren Lan turned to Wenren and asked, "Sister, are you really not going back with me?" Wenren Lan shook her head, "No." Wenren Lan thought about it and said, "All right. After I become the clan leader, I'll come and pick you up." After saying that, she looked at Yi Xian and asked, "Can you lend me your pagoda for a few days to play?" Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. Wenren Lan giggled, "I'm kidding." After saying that, she said seriously, "You helped me reach the soul formation realm. I'll remember this for the rest of my life. After I become the clan leader, I'll do my best to help your academy." After saying that, she disappeared on the spot. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. He looked at Wenren and said, "Go to the Universe of Gods Guanxian Academy first. After you get there, a little girl will take care of you." Wenren Lan nodded, "All right." In the same place, Yi Xian opened his palm and a storage ring appeared in his hand. He only had less than 100 million universe veins left. It had to be said that he still felt a little distressed. However, it was still worth it. As long as Wenren Lan became the clan leader, Guanxian Academy would be able to reach the Wenren clan. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian opened his palm and a sword intent suddenly gushed out. The sword intent of the human world. Looking at the sword intent in front of him, Yi Xian fell silent. The sword intent had become stronger again. Furthermore, it was much, much stronger. Qing Qiu. Yi Xian withdrew the sword intent and felt warm in his heart. At this moment, Emissary Zhang suddenly said, "Young master's sword intent is amazing." Yi Xian turned to look at Emissary Zhang and smiled. "Is it amazing?" Emissary Zhang nodded with a serious expression. "Young master's sword intent has unlimited growth." Yi Xian laughed and said, "Aren't you going back to the upper god realm?" Emissary Zhang hurriedly said, "I'll follow young master and serve him." Yi Xian thought for a moment and nodded, "All right." Emissary Zhang was overjoyed when he heard that. Since Yi Xian agreed, it meant that he could follow Yi Xian openly. As long as he followed Yi Xian, his future would be limitless. Yi Xian smiled and said, "I'll cultivate for a while." Emissary Zhang hurriedly nodded, "All right." As he spoke, he left respectfully. In the starry sky, Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground. In the next moment, he entered Xiao Ta. Within Xiao Ta, his eyes closed slowly. Dayabi's body trembled slightly. In the next moment, his cultivation directly rose from the ancient god realm to the universe-enlightened ancestral god realm. When he attained the universe-enlightened ancestral god realm, the sword intent within his body suddenly surged out like tidewater. Actually, his sword intent was equivalent to the energy of faith. Boundless energy of faith converged into a sword, and it became the sword intent of the human world. Yi Xian cultivated slowly within Xiao Ta. With Xiao Ta by his side, he could take his time because he had sufficient time. Just like that, 10 years passed. In the outside world, only a single day had passed. When Yi Xian left Xiao Ta, he had attained the universe-enlightened ancestral god realm. Unlike before, his cultivation wasn't unstable this time, and he used almost 10 years of time to stabilize it. Of course, he still needed actual combat. What gave him a headache was that he needed a huge amount of money to break through to the soul formation realm. Just like Wen Renlan, he needed at least over 1 billion universe veins. Over 1 billion. Yi Xian felt a headache coming on. At this moment, he thought of Qin Guan. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. "I really want to live off a woman more and more." Besides cultivation, he'd also studied the character, human, in the 6-syllable Sanskrit mantra. At this moment, the might of this character was only inferior to his instant of invincibility. The most terrifying thing was that he was still only able to utilize 10% of this character's might. To his surprise, if he utilized his sword intent when he utilized this character, its might would multiply. In short, even though he was only at the universe-enlightened ancestral god realm, it was extremely easy for him to kill a soul formation realm expert. However, he still felt an extremely terrifying pressure when facing Emissary Zhang. Obviously, a high god realm expert was still a huge threat to him. After attaining the universe-enlightened ancestral god realm, Yi Xian left the place of cultivation. As soon as he left, Emissary Zhang appeared in front of him. Emissary Zhang bowed slightly, and then he retreated behind Yi Xian. At this moment, Emissary Zhang was shocked because Yi Xian had attained the universe-enlightened ancestral god realm. So fast. After all, Yi Xian was only at the ancient god realm a day ago, yet he was already a universe-enlightened ancestral god now. This speed was truly slightly abnormal. Emissary Zhang sighed in his heart. As expected of the young master. Meanwhile, Fu Yi and Xiao Lan appeared in front of Yi Xian, and they bowed slightly to Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled, "It's over. I'm going back to my academy." As he spoke, he looked at Fu Yi. "Did you manage to contact Qin Guan?" Fu Yi shook his head, "No." Yi Xian smiled, "If you didn't manage to contact him, then forget it." Fu Yi smiled bitterly. Yi Xian smiled, "Both of you, take care." As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished on the spot with Emissary Zhang. After Yi Xian and Xiao Lan left, Fu Yi suddenly said in a light voice, "Young Master Yi has already attained the universe-enlightened ancestral god realm." Xiaolong nodded with a solemn expression. Fu Yi shook his head and smiled. "Young Master Ye's speed of improvement is truly terrifying." Xiaolong said in a light voice, "Do you see that person beside him?" Fu Yi frowned slightly. "Who is that?" Xiaolong said in a low voice, "The annihilation of the clan was done by that person." Fu Yi. Xiaolong said, "That person should be a member of the Yang clan." As he spoke, he looked towards the horizon and said in a light voice, "Is the mysterious Yang clan finally about to surface?" Yi Xian returned to Guanxian Academy with emissary Zhang. At this moment, the number of people in Guanxian Academy had expanded to tens of thousands. This was only the number of people in the universe-enlightened ancestral god. In other places, Qingqiu had already developed more than a dozen branches of Guanxian Academy. The main reason why the number of people was small was that Guanxian Academy's recruitment was too strict. This strictness did not refer to talent, but character and temperament. Everyone who entered Guanxian Academy would have to undergo various tests. It was precisely because of this that Guanxian Academy's recruitment speed was not very fast. However, now that Guanxian Academy's reputation had spread, more and more people took the initiative to come to Guanxian Academy, hoping to join it. The current dean of Guanxian Academy was Yi Xian, the head of the Wen Academy was Xu Xian, and the head of the Wuyuan Academy was Qingqiu. However, Qingqiu's authority was undoubtedly the greatest, because Xu Xian spent more time teaching and learning, while Yi Xian was a hands-off boss. Therefore, Qingqiu was completely in charge of Guanxian Academy. When Yi Xian returned to Guanxian Academy, Qingqiu immediately appeared in front of him. Looking at Yi Xian, Qingqiu smiled sweetly, "Brother." Yi Xian had just spoken, but in the next moment, his face was full of astonishment. "Girl. You have reached the universe-enlightened ancestral god realm?" Qingqiu nodded, "Yes." Yi Xian frowned slightly, "When did you reach it?" Qingqiu blinked, "Just now." "Just now." Yi Xian was stunned, and his heart was filled with shock. The corners of Qingqiu's mouth rose slightly. As long as she wanted to, she could walk to the end of the path of martial arts in Dao Yi, and be on par with 3 swords. But she didn't want to. She wanted to follow her brother. Invincible? How boring would that be? Whenever Yi Xian was invincible, she would be invincible. 7017K. Chapter 2381. Although he knew that Qingqiu was monstrous, Yi Xian was still shocked. Ancestor God Realm. This girl actually reached the Ancestor God Realm in such a short time. The reason why he could reach the Ancestor God Realm was because he had Xiao Ta and Dedeabi, but Qingqiu had nothing. Could a person really be monstrous to this extent? However, when he thought that this girl was Qing's original body, he felt relieved. Qing-er. Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts. He gently rubbed Qingqiu's little head and chuckled. Amazing. Qingqiu smiled sweetly. She hugged Yi Xian's right side and leaned her head on Yi Xian's shoulder. She whispered, "Big brother is the best." Yi Xian laughed. After spending half a day with Qingqiu, Qingqiu got up and left. Yi Xian didn't know what she was going to do. Anyway, this girl was very busy recently. Yi Xian also learned that the entire Guanxian Academy had nearly 100 branches, and the scale was still expanding. Under the leadership of Qingqiu, the current Guanxian Academy had made a name for itself. In the past, Guanxian Academy took the initiative to find people, but now, countless monstrous geniuses took the initiative to look for Guanxian Academy, wanting to join it. As the number of people increased, Yi Xian received more and more power of faith. And this was just the beginning. Qingqiu had begun to let some academies stand above the major forces, and then the academies set the rules. Whether it was the major forces or those empires, they must abide by the rules set by Guanxian Academy. Qingqiu chose a more gentle method instead of bloody suppression. Anyone who followed the academy would be greatly improved. After all, Guanxian Academy now had many cultivation methods, and these cultivation methods were far beyond the world's martial arts civilization. Under such temptation, those forces did not resist Guanxian Academy. In front of Guanxian Hall, Yi Xian was lying on a chair, the sun shining on him warmly. Deep in thought. Presently, the academy was on the right track, and he himself had attained the universe-enlightened ancestral god realm. Now that he wanted to attain the soul transformation realm, the relationship between him and the academy could be said to be getting better and better. The future. Yi Xian slowly opened his eyes. He had to think about the future. Walk out. If he stayed in this cosmos, he would naturally be invincible with his strength. However, he didn't like this kind of false invincibility. Only by going out and meeting more experts could he better improve himself. Of course, the main reason was that he really needed money now. Guanxian Academy was still spending money now, and he needed money even more. In addition, he still owed Qin Guan 2 billion. This sum of money must be returned. Sigh. Yi Xian sighed softly. After a while, Yi Xian stood up and went to find Envoy Zhang. Upon seeing Yi Xian, Envoy Zhang bowed slightly. Young Master Yi. Yi Xian looked at Emissary Zhang and smiled. Senior Emissary Zhang, do you have money? Emissary Zhang was slightly stunned, and then he smiled. How much does young Master Yi need? Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, give me 2 billion yen veins first. Emissary Zhang was stunned when he heard this. Yi Xian blinked. Is that a lot? Emissary Zhang smiled bitterly. Young master, I don't have that many yen veins. Yi Xian frowned slightly. You don't even have it in the god realm? Emissary Zhang shook his head. No, the god realm only produces around 1 billion yen veins every year, and after deducting various expenses, there's only 100 to 200 million left. As he spoke, he smiled bitterly. Young master might not know this, but even though I'm the realm lord of the god realm, this position was conferred by the Yang clan. In other words, I'm just someone who receives a salary every year. In the mortal world, I'm equivalent to a county magistrate. Yi Xian understood when he heard this. Even though Emissary Zhang was the realm lord of the god realm didn't belong to him, but to the Yang clan. Yi Xian sighed in his heart. At this moment, he thought of Qin Guan again. This rich woman. This rich woman could casually open an immortal treasure pavilion, and the profits she earned was much more than an entire realm. At this moment, Emissary Zhang suddenly asked, young master is in need of money? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Emissary Zhang smiled. Young master, if you are in need of money, you can go to a place. Yi Xian was a little curious. What place? Emissary Zhang smiled. Luo realm. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Luo realm? Emissary Zhang nodded. Luo realm is a great realm that I know of. In this Luo realm, there are close to hundreds of thousands of universe worlds. They produce at least 10 billion yen veins every year. If young master is in need of money, you can go to the Luo realm and find the Luo realm lord. Yi Xian said solemnly, will he give it to me? Emissary Zhang smiled bitterly. Young master, why wouldn't he? Would he dare to not give it? He's just working for you. The money is yours. Yi Xian blinked. It's mine? Emissary Zhang nodded. Of course. You're the young master of my Yang clan. Everything in the Yang clan is yours, right? Yi Xian nodded hurriedly. Yes. Emissary Zhang smiled. So, are we going to the Luo realm? Yi Xian said with a smile, go. Emissary Zhang nodded. All right. With that said, he opened his palm. A huge round plate appeared in his hand. The next moment, the round plate flew out and turned into a blue light that landed in front of the two of them. Emissary Zhang said solemnly, the Luo realm is too far away from this realm. Even with young masters and my strength, if we were to travel through time, it would take at least 100 years. So, we have to use this teleportation array to teleport to the star realm. There is a teleportation station established by the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. We have to go to the Luo realm from there. Yi Xian frowned. 100 years? Emissary Zhang nodded. The universe is so big that it's hard to imagine. Yi Xian was silent. He recalled what Qing once said. The current universe and the boundless universe. Now, he was still in the current universe. Outside the current universe, there was another boundless universe. Thinking of this, Yi Xian felt a headache. Damn it. This is toxic. Yi Xian raised his head and looked into the depths of the starry sky. What kind of existence do I belong to in the current universe and the boundless universe? Yi Xian shook his head and stopped thinking about this problem. No matter how big the universe was, it was best to walk the path that he had now. After Yi Xian handed over the matters of the academy, he entered the teleportation array with Emissary Zhang. As soon as he entered the teleportation array, Yi Xian realized that countless starry skies were shuttling past him. They were shuttling through time and space at a terrifying speed. Yi Xian turned to look at Emissary Zhang. Senior Emissary Zhang, Emissary Zhang hurriedly said, "Young master, don't call me senior. You can just call me old Zhang." Yi Xian smiled. "All right. Old Zhang, let me ask you a question. You are at the high god state, right?" Emissary Zhang nodded. Yi Xian asked in a deep voice, "Are there many high god state experts in the Luo world?" Emissary Zhang shook his head. "Not many. In the entire Luo world, there are no more than 2 high god state experts." Yi Xian didn't understand. Why? Emissary Zhang bitterly smiled. To reach the high deity realm, one needs an enormous amount of wealth and the power of faith. Back then, when I reached the high deity realm from the 9th stage of soul formation, it took me a total of 700,000 years. As for the time vein, I spent over 10 billion. This was because I had some fortuitous encounters. Otherwise, I wouldn't have reached the high god state. Other than that, because I am the lord of the high god world, I received the faith energy of the entire high god world. With the support of the faith energy, I reached the high god state. Saying this, he shook his head. None of these conditions are lacking. Therefore, even in the Luo world, there aren't many high god state experts. Even in a big world like the Luo world, there can only be 2 high god state experts. That's almost the limit. High god. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. Emissary Zhang continued. I took a look at the college that young master established. If young master's college grows, it will be terrifying. Yi Xian smiled. Why do you say that? Emissary Zhang said in a deep voice, because the young master's power of faith is very pure. I have never seen such a pure power of faith. If the young master's academy continues to grow, one day, the young master's power of faith will become very, very terrifying. Yi Xian smiled. It will become bigger and bigger. Emissary Zhang looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything else. Yi Xian suddenly asked, Old Zhang, what is the realm above the high god state? Emissary Zhang was about to say something when a white light appeared in the distance. In the next moment, he and Yi Xian disappeared into the space-time tunnel. In next to no time, the two of them appeared on a teleportation platform. Yi Xian looked around. At this moment, he was in a boundless starry sky, and beneath his feet was a transportation platform. Around them, there were so many transportation platforms that one couldn't see the end of them with a single glance. There were at least 1 million teleportation platforms in this starry sky. Yi Xian was slightly surprised and shocked. He hadn't expected that there would be so many teleportation platforms in this starry sky. At this moment, an old man appeared in front of Yi Xian and Emissary Zhang. The old man glanced at the teleportation formation behind Yi Xian and Emissary Zhang, and then he said, 300,000, 300,000. Yi Xian was stunned, and then he said, 300,000 universe veins? The old man nodded. Exactly. Yi Xian's face darkened. 300,000 universe veins for a single teleportation? The old man gazed at Yi Xian. Young master is quite far from here, so the fee is 300,000 universe veins. Yi Xian remained silent. That money pot was too profitable. Just this teleportation formation alone brought in a huge amount of profit for this rich woman every single day. Emissary Zhang wasn't very surprised, and he was about to take out some money. However, Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm, and a command token appeared there. He passed it to the old man, and the old man's expression changed drastically when he saw the command token. He spoke with a trembling voice, Are you young Master Yi? Yi Xian nodded. The old man laughed bitterly. Young Master Yi, I'm sorry if I offended you just now. Yi Xian smiled. I didn't offend you at all. The old man hurriedly said, Since you're young Master Yi, then you don't have to pay any fees. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, I'm a super VIP of the Immortal Treasure Pavilion, right? The old man nodded. Yes. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, According to my knowledge, the Immortal Treasure Pavilion has a loan program. I want to get a loan, and Miss Qin Guan is my guarantor. How much can I get? The old man was speechless. P.S. Sorry, something unexpected happened while I was washing my feet last night. 7,017K. Chapter 2382. Alone. The old man instantly became embarrassed when he heard Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled and said, What's wrong? The old man hesitated for a moment and said, Young Master Yi, I'm just a small person in charge here. I don't have the authority to decide on a loan. Young Master Yi can look for President Lan Shan at the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. President Lan Shan. Yi Xian nodded. Where is he? The old man hurriedly pointed to the right. Go 5,000 kilometers away from here. There's a branch of my Immortal Treasure Pavilion there, and President Lan Shan is there. Yi Xian nodded. All right. As soon as he finished speaking, he brought Emissary Zhang along and vanished into the distance. In next to no time, Yi Xian and Emissary Zhang arrived at the Immortal Treasure Pavilion's branch. As soon as Yi Xian arrived, an old man came out to greet him, and the old man bowed slightly. Are you young Master Yi? Yi Xian nodded. I am. The old man bowed once more. Young Master Yi, please enter. Yi Xian smiled. Is your president here? The old man hesitated for a moment and said, He isn't here. Yi Xian frowned slightly. He isn't here? The old man nodded. Yes, the president had something to do not too long ago, and he has been gone for a long time. Yi Xian fell silent. He isn't here. Yi Xian glanced at the hall behind the old man. Meanwhile, Emissary Zhang, who stood by Yi Xian's side, spoke in a low voice. Young master, he's here. Do you want me to drag him out? Yi Xian chuckled. There's no need for that. Let's go. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Emissary Zhang glanced at the Immortal Treasure Pavilion in the distance, and then he turned around and left as well. After Yi Xian and Emissary Zhang vanished into the horizon, a middle-aged man appeared here, and the old man hurriedly bowed respectfully. President. The middle-aged man was the president of the Immortal Treasure Pavilion's branch, Lan Shan. Lan Shan gazed at the horizon and remained silent. The old man hesitated for a moment before he said, President, why don't you see this young Master Yi? Lan Shan said softly, This young Master Yi is here for a loan. With that said, he shook his head. I don't want to give him a loan. The old man was puzzled. Why? Lan Shan chuckled. I'm afraid he can't pay me back. With that, he turned around and left. The old man. On the other side, beside Yi Xian, Emissary Zhang said in a deep voice, Young master, Lan Shan is in the hall. Yi Xian smiled and said, I know. Emissary Zhang looked at Yi Xian in confusion. Then young master, Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. He should have guessed the reason why I went to the Celestial Treasure Pavilion, and his unwillingness to see me is very obvious. Since the other party is unwilling, I naturally can't force it. The chapter made silence. Yi Xian smiled and said, let's go to Luo World. Emissary Zhang nodded. All right. Not long after, the two of them arrived at the teleportation platform. Under Emissary Zhang's lead, the two of them arrived in front of a teleportation platform. Just as the two of them were about to enter, a terrifying aura suddenly swept out from behind them. Emissary Zhang frowned. He turned around and waved his sleeve. The terrifying aura was directly shattered. A surprised voice suddenly resounded from behind Yi Xian and Emissary Zhang. Yi Xian and Emissary Zhang turned around and saw a lady in a purple robe standing before them. The lady had shoulder-length hair, and she held a folding fan in her right hand. She had an extraordinary bearing. Behind her was an old man in a black robe. The old man's face was gloomy, and there was a ghastly look in his eyes. The lady in the purple robe looked at Emissary Zhang with a trace of curiosity in her eyes. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Miss, what's the matter? The violet-robed woman withdrew her gaze when she heard this, and then she gazed at Yi Xian. She sized him up before she smiled and said, it's nothing. We're heading to the Luo realm as well. Yi Xian was stunned, and then he said, both of you intend to head to Luo world as well? Then why are you stopping us? The lady gazed at Yi Xian and remained silent. Meanwhile, Emissary Zhang spoke calmly. Once someone enters the teleportation formation to Luo world, then it'll take half a day before they can enter again. If we enter it, then they'll have to wait for half a day. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. Just a single teleportation formation to Luo world? Emissary Zhang nodded, yes. Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he gazed at the lady and smiled. Miss, how about we accompany each other and enter it together? Who do you think you are? Meanwhile, the old man behind the lady spoke abruptly. Are you even worthy of going with my young miss? You. Emissary Zhang suddenly raised his hand and slapped it down. Thump. The old man didn't even have the time to react before he was forced to his knees by a terrifying force. Space shattered as he knelt down. Emissary Zhang gazed at the dumbfounded old man. Who do you think you are? Are you even worthy of speaking to my young master? The black-robed old man's face was filled with disbelief. You're a half-step god. A half-step god. Hearing this, the purple-robed woman's pupils suddenly constricted. A half-step god could be considered as a top figure even in the entire Luo world. Emissary Zhang's face remained expressionless. He didn't speak, and he just moved behind Yi Xian. He had to obey his young master's orders. As a subordinate, he couldn't steal the limelight from his young master. Yi Xian glanced at the lady and the black-robed old man, and then he said, Brother Zhang, let's go. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and walked towards the teleportation formation. Meanwhile, the violet-robed woman spoke abruptly. Who are you? Yi Xian stopped moving, and then he turned around to look at her. What's wrong? She gazed at Yi Xian. I'm from the Luo world's Zhantai clan. Yi Xian shook his head. I've never heard of it. The violet-robed woman's eyes narrowed slightly. You've never heard of it? Yi Xian turned around to look at Emissary Zhang. Have you? Emissary Zhang shook his head. I've never heard of it. The violet-robed woman's face instantly darkened. How dare you look down on my Zhantai clan? Yi Xian sighed softly. I'm not looking down on your Zhantai clan. I really haven't heard of your Zhantai clan. Besides that, I think it's really not worth it to get into a conflict over something so trivial. What do you think? The violet-robed woman gazed at Yi Xian. You started it. Yi Xian smiled. Then was it your subordinate who provoked me first? The violet-robed woman fell silent. Yi Xian continued. I know that your Zhantai clan is definitely a powerful clan, but I think that we should keep a low profile and be humble when we're outside. The violet-robed woman gazed at Yi Xian and didn't speak. Yi Xian continued, "Tell me, is it worth it for both of us to get into a conflict over something so trivial? I don't think it's worth it, so let's stop here. Is that all right?" The violet-robed woman still didn't speak. Yi Xian didn't say anything else, and he turned around and led emissary Zhang into the teleportation formation. The violet-robed woman gazed at Yi Xian and emissary Zhang, who had vanished into the distance with a calm expression, and no one knew what she was thinking. Behind her, the old man's expression was terrifyingly gloomy. The violet-robed woman suddenly spoke softly, "Dedeabi." As she spoke, her eyes narrowed slightly, and her gaze flickered. No one knew what she was thinking. In the space-time tunnel, emissary Zhang glanced at Yi Xian, and then he smiled, "Young master, you're too kind." "Kind?" Yi Xian shook his head and smiled, "It's not that I'm kind, but I don't want to kill anymore. Under normal circumstances, we will have a conflict with them, and then kill them. Then, the people behind them will come and take revenge on us." As he spoke, he shook his head again, "This is so boring." Emissary Zhang was silent. Yi Xian continued, "Fewer enemies, more friends. After all, my academy wants to change the entire universe, and I don't want to change the entire universe by killing." Emissary Zhang glanced at Yi Xian, and didn't speak. In the distance, Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. And suddenly, a faint sword intent appeared around him. Kindness sword intent. And now, the kindness sword intent on his body completely suppressed the evil sword intent. In addition, his human world sword intent was also getting stronger, and the human world sword intent was all-encompassing. Yi Xian looked at the Qingxian sword in his hand. He now had the Qingxian sword and the area armor. In fact, he really wanted to fight with emissary Zhang, and he wanted to see how far he was from the superior god realm. There was definitely a gap. It was impossible for him to cross 2 levels and reach the divine realm. He might have a chance after reaching the divine transformation realm, but it was definitely impossible now. And to reach the divine transformation realm, he needed money. Money. Yi Xian sighed in his heart, he was in dire need of money now. At this moment, emissary Zhang suddenly said, "Young master, we have arrived." Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts and looked into the distance. Not far away, a white light suddenly gushed out, and the next moment, the two of them directly disappeared in the teleportation formation. Not long after, Yi Xian and emissary Zhang appeared on a plane. Yi Xian slowly opened his eyes, and he looked around. There were all kinds of teleportation formations everywhere, and from time to time, people walked out of these teleportation formations. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled, this industry was too profitable. To start such an industry, one only needed to sit around and collect money every day. At this moment, a middle-aged man appeared in front of Yi Xian and emissary Zhang. The middle-aged man bowed slightly, "Young Master Yi." Yi Xian looked at the middle-aged man, "Celestial Treasure Pavilion?" The middle-aged man nodded, "Young Master Yi, I am the president of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion branch in Luo World, Lanqing." Yi Xian sized up the middle-aged man and smiled, "What is your relationship with that Lan Shan?" Lanqing smiled, "He is my brother." "Brother?" Yi Xian was slightly stunned, and then he smiled, "Did you come to me for something?" Lanqing smiled slightly, "As far as I know, young master Yi wants a loan." Yi Xian nodded. Lanqing said in a low voice, "Young master Yi, how much do you want?" Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, 2 billion universe veins. Lanqing was silent for a moment, and then he said, "I will give young master Yi a loan of 3 billion, 3 billion. Yi Xian was stunned. Lanqing continued, "There is no need for any guarantee, and there is no need for any interest. However, young master Yi has to pay it back within 10 years. Yi Xian looked at Lanqing, "Why?" Lanqing smiled slightly, "Young master Yi is an extraordinary genius, and the pavilion master thinks highly of you. Therefore, I am willing to be friends with young master Yi." As he spoke, he opened his palm, and a storage ring appeared in front of Yi Xian. There were exactly 3 billion universe veins in the storage ring. Yi Xian looked at Lan Qing for a moment, and then he smiled. Aren't you afraid that I won't return it? Lan Qing blinked. If young Master Yi doesn't return it, then I will go to Guanxian Academy and not leave. 7017K. Chapter 2383. 3 billion. Yi Xian fell silent as he gazed at the spatial ring in his hand. 3 billion wasn't a small amount, yet Lan Qing had lent it to him just like that. Moreover, he didn't even take any interest. Obviously, Lan Qing wasn't doing this for Yi Xian, but for Qing Guan or the Yang clan. Meanwhile, Lan Qing suddenly smiled. Young Master Yi, I still have matters to attend to, so I'll be taking my leave. Young Master Yi, feel free to come to the Immortal Treasure Pavilion if you need anything. I, Lan Qing, will definitely not refuse if it's within my ability. Yi Xian smiled. All right. Lan Qing cupped his fists, glanced at Emissary Zhang, and then left. Emissary Zhang chuckled as he watched Lan Qing leave. No wonder he was able to become the president of the Immortal Treasure Pavilion's branch in Luo Dimension. He isn't just a little bit stronger than Lan Shan. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. 3 billion is a huge favor. Emissary Zhang smiled. Not to mention 3 billion, even 30 billion is worth it. Yi Xian laughed. He glanced into the distance and said, Where are we going now? Emissary Zhang replied, Luo City. According to my knowledge, the lord of this world is called Luo Tian. Yi Xian blinked. Do they recognize me as their young master? Emissary Zhang was stunned, and then he smiled. Young master, don't joke around. How could they dare to not recognize you? As he spoke, he hesitated for a moment and continued, Young master, don't lower yourself. Regardless of whether it's me or Luo Tian, we're just working for the Yang clan. If it wasn't for the Yang clan, then it would be impossible for us to attain the god rank realm. Yi Xian fell silent. Emissary Zhang continued, Young master can change the owner of the entire Luo dimension with a single word. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Power. Needless to say, the temptation of power was extremely great on many occasions. The young master of the Yang clan? He didn't have such a concept in the past because he hadn't come into contact with the Yang clan. But now, Emissary Zhang's words allowed him to understand how terrifying his identity as the young master of the Yang clan was. A single sentence was enough to change the life and death of countless people. At this time, Envoy Zhang added, Also, young master may not know this, but this Luo world is actually nothing compared to the entire Yang clan's territory. It's equivalent to a small town in the mortal world. No, it's not even a small town, at most a slightly larger village. Yi Xian was a little curious. Who is in charge of the Yang clan now? Emissary Zhang smiled bitterly. I don't know. Yi Xian was surprised. You don't know? Emissary Zhang nodded, his smile becoming more bitter. My rank is not high enough, so I can't get in touch with the higher-ups of the Yang clan. Yi Xian was speechless. Envoy Zhang continued, However, I know that the Yang clan has a mysterious troop. Yi Xian looked at Emissary Zhang. The mysterious troop? Emissary Zhang nodded. This mysterious unit seems to be made up entirely of swordsmen. There aren't many of them, but their strength is extremely terrifying. And they all listen to the orders of one person, that is Sword Emperor Tingyun. Tingyun. Yi Xian was stunned. Tingyun? Emissary Zhang nodded. Yes. Yi Xian smiled faintly. So it's her. A long, long time ago, he had seen Tingyun. Back then, there was also Tu. Yi Xian sighed softly. Actually, he missed Tu a little. Ever since Tu left back then, there was no news of him. Thinking of this, Yi Xian secretly decided to get the Yang clan to help look for Tuesday. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and said, Let's go to Luocheng. Emissary Zhang nodded. Both of them disappeared on the spot. Not long after both of them disappeared, a woman and an old man appeared on the scene. This woman was the purple-robed woman that both of them had met previously. The old man stared into the distance with a gloomy gaze. No one knew what he was thinking. The purple-robed woman suddenly said, "Let's go." With that, she and the old man disappeared on the spot. Luocheng. When Yi Xian and emissary Zhang arrived at Luocheng, Yi Xian was shocked by the entire city. The size of the entire city was slightly beyond his expectations. The city walls stretched as far as the eye could see, and the city walls were 300 m tall. A person standing in front of the city was really tiny like an ant. Of course, it was different from the mortal world. No matter how tall the city walls were, they were still short in front of these cultivators who could go to heaven and earth. Not to mention the city walls, even the entire world was extremely tiny in front of these powerful cultivators. Emissary Zhang suddenly laughed. This Luocheng is so much bigger than the upper god realm. Yi Xian looked at emissary Zhang and smiled. Under normal circumstances, how do you get promoted? Emissary Zhang thought about it and said, there are two ways. First, one has to be strong enough. For example, if I'm above the high god realm, I'll be able to get promoted and head to a bigger universe to work there. There, I'll get more rights and cultivation resources. The second way is to render meritorious service. If I render meritorious service, I can get promoted too. As he spoke, he shook his head. Both are difficult. To be honest, if there are no accidents, the upper god realm and the upper god realm are my limits. Yi Xian chuckled. Meeting me, the upper god realm will be your starting point. As he finished speaking, he walked into the distance. Emissary Zhang was stunned for a moment. Then, he was overjoyed and quickly followed. At this moment, he was so excited that his body could not help but tremble. Just as he said, if there were no special opportunities, the upper god realm and the upper god realm were his limits. However, Yi Xian was his special opportunity. This was the young master of the Yang clan. Emissary Zhang followed Yi Xian and was a little like a close official of the emperor in the mortal world. On the surface, he was just a guard, but who would dare to look down on him? After entering the city, Yi Xian looked at both sides. In the city, there were people coming and going. It was very prosperous. Emissary Zhang suddenly said, "Young master, let's head to the city lord residence." Yi Xian nodded. All right. The two of them were about to head to the city lord residence when a voice suddenly came from the side. "Brother, please wait." Hearing this, Yi Xian stopped in his tracks. He turned around and saw a young man standing in front of him. The man looked to be in his 20s and wore a luxurious robe with a long jade hanging on his waist. He looked very elegant and refined. Yi Xian smiled. "What's the matter?" The young man walked slowly to Yi Xian and smiled. "I am Li Feng. May I know your name?" Yi Xian said, "Yi Xian." Li Feng smiled. He pointed at the Dedeabi hanging on Yi Xian's waist. "Brother Yi, to tell you the truth, I called you here because of this." At this moment, Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Stupid pen, you're not cool at all. Everyone knows you. What are you doing here?" Dedeabi was speechless. Yi Xian glanced at the Dedeabi hanging on his waist, and then he smiled. "For this?" Li Feng nodded. "Brother Yi, to tell you the truth, a friend of mine wants to buy this. Can you name a price?" "Buy Dedeabi?" Yi Xian was stunned. Dedeabi was speechless. Li Feng smiled. "Yes. Brother Yi, name a price." Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. "I'm not selling." Li Feng smiled. "Brother Yi, we'll give you a very satisfactory price." Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "Then 10 billion. The smile on Li Feng's face gradually vanished. Yi Xian smiled. "Is that too much?" Li Feng smiled and said, "Brother Yi, you're a little too greedy." Yi Xian said seriously, "Brother Li, this is Dedeabi, Dedeabi." Li Feng chuckled. "Dedeabi? It's just a clone." Moreover, even if it's not a clone but the main body, then it isn't worth 10 billion. Yi Xian was speechless. In a room somewhere in the Milky Way, a voice suddenly resounded. Fuck. Within Luocheng. Yi Xian looked at Li Feng and smiled. Young Master Li, who's your friend? Li Feng shook his head. Brother Yi doesn't need to know. As he spoke, he walked over to Yi Xian and opened his palm. A spatial ring appeared before Yi Xian. Brother Yi, I want this to Daebi. Yi Xian glanced at the spatial ring. There were only 10 million universe veins within it. 10 million. Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, Xiao Ta suddenly said, 10 million, lousy pen, you're too cheap. If I were you, I'd buy a piece of tofu and kill myself. This is too shameful. Daebi said angrily, Lousy Ta, can you stop talking nonsense? Xiao Ta said calmly, what are you shouting at me for? Shout at him. Daebi suddenly said calmly, why would I shout at someone who's about to die? Xiao Ta said solemnly, you've made arrangements for him? Daebi said, it's none of your business. Xiao Ta, in the city, Yi Xian looked at the 10 million universe veins in front of him and shook his head with a smile. Brotherly, are you going to forcefully buy it? Li Feng looked at Yi Xian and pinched the spatial ring. There were only 9 million universe veins in it. Are you selling it? Yi Xian shook his head. Li Feng smiled and pinched the spatial ring again. There were only 5 million universe veins left. Are you selling it? Yi Xian shook his head with a smile. Envoy Zhang looked at Li Feng with a calm expression. It was like he was looking at a dead man. Li Feng suddenly put the spatial ring away and smiled. Brother Yi, there's not a single one left now. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, Brotherly, look at me. Do you think I'm a person who's easy to bully? Li Feng roared with laughter. What? Brother Yi, are you trying to threaten me? Yi Xian shook his head. I just want you to take a look at me and see if I'm easy to bully. Li Feng sized up Yi Xian seriously, and then he smiled. I think you're very easy to bully. Yi Xian looked at Li Feng. How can you tell? Li Feng smiled. Soft and weak, gentle in speech, and has such a good temper. People like this are usually easy to bully. Am I right? Yi Xian glanced at Li Feng and smiled. What's the use of your eyes? At this moment, Envoy Zhang pressed his fingers together. Qi. Blood suddenly sprayed from Li Feng's eyes. Ah! Li Feng was horrified. He retreated repeatedly and said angrily, You dare to injure me. You dare to injure me. Yi Xian shook his head. You're being used as a tool. What's the use of your brain? Envoy Zhang pressed his fingers together. Qi. Li Feng's head flew into the air. Blood sprayed into the sky like a fountain. Murder. Countless people in the surroundings were horrified and retreated explosively. After all, it was forbidden to kill people in the city. In a certain restaurant, a man in white suddenly picked up the wine cup in front of him and took a sip. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. I thought you were a smart person, but I didn't expect you to be a retard. Killing people in the Yang clan's territory. This young master is going to die of laughter. P.S. The last time I updated 2 chapters, I was scolded badly. I underestimated my place in your hearts. Don't explode. Tickets? I'm probably daydreaming. F***CK. 7017K. Chapter 2384. There was a woman in front of the white-clothed man. It was the violet-robed woman. The violet-robed woman picked up her teacup and took a sip, and then she smiled, Brother Bai Sheng, don't underestimate him. Especially that person by his side, he's at least an expert at the 5th level of the soul transformation realm. The man called Bai Sheng glanced at Emissary Zhang, and then he smiled, he really is extraordinary. As he spoke, He gazed at the violet-robed woman. Zhang Taijing, do you have enmity with him? The violet-robed woman called Zhang Taijing grinned, sort of. Bai Sheng was about to speak, but he suddenly frowned and turned around. A young man was walking up slowly from the nearby staircase, and there was a middle-aged man by the young man's side. It was Yi Xian and emissary Zhang. Bai Sheng frowned slightly when he saw Yi Xian and emissary Zhang walk over. Meanwhile, an old man with a walking stick suddenly appeared by Bai Sheng's side, and his gaze locked onto emissary Zhang while his eyes were filled with vigilance. Yi Xian walked slowly towards Bai Sheng. Meanwhile, the old man by Bai Sheng's side immediately stood in front of Yi Xian, and then emissary Zhang suddenly pressed his right hand down from afar. Bang! Under everyone's gaze, the old man with the crutch directly knelt in front of Yi Xian with a plop. He did not even have the strength to resist at all. Bai Sheng's pupils constricted when he witnessed this scene. Because the old man was an expert at the peak of the 4th level of the soul transformation realm, yet he wasn't even able to resist this middle-aged man. The violet-robed woman's expression instantly became solemn as well. I've underestimated him. This emissary Zhang might be an expert at the 6th level of the soul transformation realm or above. Yi Xian walked over slowly to sit by Bai Sheng's side, and then he smiled. I was quite curious. After all, it's my first time in Luocheng, and I have no enemies at all. So why would anyone target me? As he spoke, he gazed at the violet-robed woman and smiled. I understand now that I've seen you. Zhang Taijing gazed at Yi Xian in silence. Yi Xian looked at Zhang Taijing and said with a smile, I really don't understand. We met because of a very, very small matter. Why would Miss want to form an evil fate because of a very, very small matter? The old man by Zhang Taijing's side was just about to speak when emissary Zhang suddenly clenched his right hand. Boom! The black-robed old man's body shattered right away and his soul was grabbed by the throat by an invisible hand, rendering him unable to make a single sound. Emissary Zhang looked coldly at the black-robed old man. Young master didn't ask you, so you shut up, understand? The black-robed old man looked at Messenger Zhang in horror, his eyes filled with disbelief. He had wanted to retaliate, or rather, he had been mentally prepared. However, when emissary Zhang had made his move, he hadn't been able to retaliate at all. Zhang Taijing's expression instantly became unsightly when she saw the black-robed old man's body being destroyed. She gazed at Yi Xian and was just about to speak when Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Miss, I didn't want to cause trouble because it's better to avoid trouble. But unfortunately, that's only my wishful thinking. Since you want to cause trouble for me so much, then I'll do as you wish. As soon as he finished speaking, a strand of light from a sword pierced through her forehead before she could even react, and then her entire body was nailed to a pillar. Zhang Taijing roared furiously. I'm from the Zhantai clan. Yi Xian gazed at Zhang Taijing and smiled. Do you know why I didn't kill you? It's because I wanted you to call for help. Come, call for help. Let the most capable member of your Zhantai clan come out. Zhang Taijing was shocked when she heard this. Why is he so confident? Why? At this moment, Zhang Taijing suddenly felt slightly panicked. On the other hand, Bai Sheng's expression had become extremely solemn, and he gazed at Yi Xian. Your Excellency. Emissary Zhang suddenly slapped him. Boom! Before everyone's eyes, Bai Sheng's physical body directly shattered and turned into ashes, while the surrounding restaurant remained completely unscathed. Bai Sheng was dumbfounded. Emissary Zhang glanced coldly at Bai Sheng's soul. Did the young master allow you to speak? Bai Sheng, Yi Xian looked at Zhang Taijing, who had been nailed to the pillar by him. Where are your people? Zhang Taijing stared fixedly at Yi Xian and did not speak. Yi Xian smiled. At this moment, a terrifying aura suddenly came from the side. The next moment, an old man holding a spear appeared in the restaurant. The old man looked at Yi Xian. Old man Zhang Tai. Before he could finish speaking, emissary Zhang suddenly punched out. Boom! The old man disappeared on the spot. He had been forcefully erased. Seeing this, Zhang Taijing's pupils suddenly shrank to the size of needles. Bai Xing's face was also filled with terror. Just how strong was this emissary Zhang? Is he really only at the half-step soul formation stage? Suddenly, a middle-aged man appeared here. He glanced at Bai Xing, and then he gazed at emissary Zhang. Who are you? Emissary Zhang's face remained expressionless. Speak to my young master. The middle-aged man's gaze descended onto Yi Xian, and then he hesitated for a moment before he said, I'm the grand elder of the Bai clan, Bai Zhan. May I know your name? Yi Xian smiled, Yi Xian. Yi Xian. The middle-aged man's brows knit together slightly because he hadn't heard of this name. He restrained his thoughts and spoke in a low voice, May I know how my Bai clan has offended you? Yi Xian pointed at Bai Xing in the distance and said with a smile, Ask him. As he spoke, he gazed at emissary Zhang. If he dares to lie, then send him from the afterlife. Emissary Zhang bowed slightly, understood. Bai Xing was speechless. Bai Zhan glanced at emissary Zhang, and then he gazed at Bai Xing, Speak. Bai Xing didn't dare conceal anything, and he told them everything. After he heard Bai Xing, Bai Zhan glanced coldly at Zhang Taijing. He knew that Bai Xing had fallen into her trap. Alas! Bai Zhan shook his head and sighed. What a piece of trash! Bai Zhan restrained his thoughts, and then he gazed at Yi Xian and cupped his fists, Young master, it's my Bai clan's fault. Please be merciful. Yi Xian smiled, You don't seem to be sincere at all. Bai Zhan was slightly stunned, and then he said, What sort of sincerity do you need? Yi Xian glanced at Bai Xing, and then he smiled, He's such a good-for-nothing, so he probably doesn't have any status in your clan, right? Bai Zhan hurriedly nodded, and he was about to speak when Bai Xing spoke fiercely, My father is the patriarch of the Bai clan, and I'm the young master of the Bai clan. Bai Zhan was infuriated when he heard Bai Xing, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. What an idiot! The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly when he heard Bai Xing, Since you're the young master, then your life is valuable. 1 billion. As he spoke, he grinned, 1 billion to buy your young master's life isn't too much, right? Bai Zhan's expression gradually calmed down as he gazed at Yi Xian, 1 billion? Yi Xian nodded, Is that a lot? Bai Zhan fell silent for a short moment, and then he said, That's quite an exorbitant demand. Yi Xian smiled, You can refuse. Bai Zhan's eyes narrowed slightly, Don't go overboard, and it'll be easier for us to meet in the future. You. Emissary Zhang suddenly smashed his fist forward. Bai Zhan's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he swiftly placed his arms before his chest. In the next moment, Bai Zhan vanished on the spot. He'd been completely annihilated. There wasn't even the slightest movement. The expressions of everyone in the restaurant changed when they witnessed this scene. That was too terrifying. Being killed in an instant wasn't terrifying, the terrifying part was that it had been killed with such ease, and there really wasn't even the slightest movement. That was simply absurd. At this moment, Bai Xing and the others were terrified. They were truly terrified. They knew that they'd provoked someone that they shouldn't have provoked. Yi Xian looked at Zhang Taijing, and Zhang Taijing looked at Yi Xian in horror. Who are you? Who the hell are you? Yi Xian smiled, Miss, you can call for help. Zhang Taijing's expression was somewhat ugly. Call for help? At this moment, she was completely panicking. At this moment, footsteps suddenly sounded from the side, and soon, a middle-aged man walked up. Seeing the middle-aged man, Zhang Taijing was instantly ecstatic, Father. The person who came was the patriarch of Zhantai clan, Zhang Taiyuan. After Zhang Taiyuan walked up, he directly ignored Zhang Taijing, and then walked to the front of Yi Xian, and his eyes fell on Yi Xian. Before coming, I've investigated the entire Luo world, and there isn't a powerful Yi clan. I think this young master is from the outside. Yi Xian nodded, Yes. Zhang Taiyuan smiled, Young master, this is a small matter. Can young master be magnanimous? Yi Xian pointed at Zhang Taijing, I gave her a chance, but unfortunately, she didn't cherish it. After coming here, she caused trouble for me again. Do you think it's appropriate for her to do this? Zhang Taiyuan shook his head, no. Yi Xian smiled, 1 billion, give me 1 billion, and I'll let her go. Zhang Taiyuan shook his head, young master, do it. Yi Xian was stunned. Zhang Taiyuan smiled, young master, she's not worth 1 billion. Hearing this, Zhang Taijing's face instantly turned pale. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, she's your daughter. Zhang Taiyuan chuckled, my daughter is gone. She can be reborn. But 1 billion will empty the entire Zhantai clan. It's not worth it to harm the entire clan for one person. Yi Xian was silent. At this moment, Zhang Taiyuan suddenly waved his right hand. Boom! Zhang Taijing was directly hit by a force, and then she was completely wiped out. Killed. Yi Xian was stunned. He killed her just like that? Father? Fuck. Yi Xian was stunned. It wasn't just Yi Xian, even emissary Zhang was surprised. He glanced at Zhang Taiyuan who sat in front of Yi Xian and didn't speak. Bai Sheng looked at Zhang Taiyuan in disbelief. Of course, he felt even more sorrow at this moment because he knew that compared to the clan, an individual was really insignificant. Meanwhile, Zhang Taiyuan suddenly stood up and bowed slightly, young master, the culprit is dead. The enmity between the Zhantai clan and young master is settled. Young master, take care. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. On the spot, Yi Xian was silent for a moment, and then he said softly, my father is actually not bad. The green-clothed man was speechless. Right at this moment, a terrifying aura suddenly attacked from the distant horizon. Meanwhile, Bai Sheng suddenly said excitedly, it's an expert from Luocheng. An expert from Luocheng. An expert from Luocheng. Obviously, Luocheng already knew that a battle had occurred here. Bai Sheng suddenly looked at Yi Xian and said fiercely, do you know the Yang clan? Killing someone in the Yang clan's territory is equivalent to looking down on the Yang clan. Yi Xian picked up the teacup in front of him and took a sip, and then he said softly, the Yang clan? As he spoke, he shook his head and smiled, I can annihilate them with a flick of my finger. Bai Sheng was speechless. Emissary Zhang was embarrassed. This act. 7017K. Chapter 2385. Annihilate him with a flick of a finger. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Bai Sheng suddenly started laughing madly, and he was laughing like a madman. Yi Xian ignored Bai Sheng and drank his tea lightly. As if he thought of something, he looked at Emissary Zhang, did I lie? Emissary Zhang's expression froze. At this moment, the sound of footsteps suddenly came from the side, and soon, an old man walked over slowly. The old man wore a loose black robe, and his hands were hidden in his sleeves. His eyes were sharp like knives, and as he walked, he gave off an extremely oppressive feeling. Behind the old man were 4 black-robed men. All 4 of them had extremely powerful auras. The old man walked slowly to sit in front of Yi Xian. Seeing this scene, Emissary Zhang frowned slightly, and he was slightly displeased. Sit opposite Yi Xian? He didn't dare. Emissary Zhang was about to flare up, but as if he thought of something, he glanced at Yi Xian, and then stopped. The old man looked at Yi Xian, annihilate the Yang clan with a flick of a finger, did you say that? Yi Xian nodded, it was a joke. Don't take it seriously. A joke? The old man chuckled, how interesting. You said my Yang clan can be annihilated with a flick of a finger, is that a joke? Yi Xian nodded lightly. At this moment, Bai Sheng suddenly roared, how dare you look down on the Yang clan? Yi Xian glanced at the maddened Bai Sheng, what does it have to do with you? Bai Sheng was speechless. The old man in front of Yi Xian chuckled, young man, I have to say, you're the most arrogant person I've ever seen. Of course, the old man can understand. After all, young people are frivolous. But do you know about the Yang clan? Yi Xian nodded. I do. The old man wanted to say something, but Yi Xian suddenly took out a spatial ring, and it was the ring his father gave him before he left. Yi Xian placed the spatial ring on the table, and then looked at the old man. The old man looked at the storage ring and frowned. What do you mean? Yi Xian was stunned. You don't recognize this item? The long-robed old man looked at Yi Xian. Should I recognize this item? Yi Xian turned to look at emissary Jiang. Do you recognize this object? The messenger hesitated, then shook his head. Yi Xian frowned, feeling a little puzzled. At this moment, envoy Jiang asked softly, Did the sword master give it to you? Yi Xian nodded. Emissary Jiang smiled bitterly. Then there's only one explanation. Our ranks are too low. Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, the long-robed elder looked at emissary Jiang. How should I address you? Emissary Jiang shook his head. Let Luo Tian do it. Your rank is too low, you're not fit to speak to young lord. Luo Tian. The long-robed old man narrowed his eyes. You know the realm lord. Emissary Jiang frowned. Just do as I say. What's with all the crap? A cold glow flashed through the long-robed old man's eyes, and he stood up right away. Meanwhile, 5 terrifying auras pressed down upon emissary Jiang. A cold glow flashed through emissary Jiang's eyes, and he flicked his sleeve. Rumble. In an instant, the bodies of the old man and the others shattered into pieces, and only their souls remained. The old man and the others were stunned when they witnessed this scene. Bai Xing's face was also filled with confusion. Meanwhile, the long-robed old man spoke with a trembling voice, You're at the High God realm. The High God realm. Bai Xing's face instantly turned pale when he heard the long-robed old man. Emissary Jiang suddenly turned around with an icy cold gaze. Luo Tian, I don't believe you don't know that the young lord has arrived. His voice rumbled like thunder, and it instantly swept through Luo City. As soon as he finished speaking, a middle-aged man suddenly appeared here. The middle-aged man wore a luxurious robe, had long hair that hung loosely on his shoulders, and emanated an extremely terrifying aura. The long-robed old man and the others hurriedly knelt down when they saw the middle-aged man. Greetings, Realm Lord. It was exactly Luo Tian. Luo Tian paid no attention to the long-robed old man and the others. He walked slowly towards Yi Xian, and then he bowed slightly under the gazes of everyone. The Realm Lord of Luo Dimension greets the young lord. The young lord. Bai Xing seemed as if he'd been struck by lightning when he heard Luo Tian, and his mind went blank. On the other hand, the long-robed old man and the others were petrified on the spot. Emissary Zhang's eyes narrowed slightly while a cold glow flickered within them. Because Luo Tian had merely bowed to Yi Xian and hadn't knelt down. Yi Xian gazed at Luo Tian and remained silent. Luo Tian didn't wait for Yi Xian to reply before he straightened his back and spoke calmly. I didn't know that the young lord had arrived at Luo Dimension. Please forgive me, young lord. Emissary Zhang laughed coldly. Forgive me? Luo Tian, are you joking? If I'm not wrong, then you should have been aware that the young lord and I had just arrived at Luo City. However, you didn't come and even allowed the powers in your city to look for trouble with the young lord. You. Luo Tian suddenly turned to look at Emissary Zhang. Emissary Zhang, according to rank, you're my subordinate. Please watch your tone. Emissary Zhang's eyes narrowed when he heard this, and a cold glow flickered within them. However, Luo Tian didn't care at all. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly chuckled lightly. You're Luo Tian, right? Luo Tian looked at Yi Xian. Yes, young lord. Yi Xian stood up and walked over to stand before Luo Tian, and he looked Luo Tian in the eyes. Answer the question that Emissary Zhang asked you earlier. Luo Tian looked at Yi Xian and remained silent. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly. I'll give you one last chance. Answer me now, right now. Luo Tian remained silent for a moment before he said, I don't want to answer you. How dare you? Emissary Zhang suddenly exploded with rage, and he smashed his fist towards Luo Tian. Luo Tian turned around and smashed his fist out as well. Bang! As soon as their fists collided, the entire restaurant shattered. A terrifying pressure instantly swept through the entire Luo city. The entire Luo city was shocked. Someone actually dared to make a move in Luo city? It didn't take long for a few tens of thousands of formidable auras to shoot into the sky from within Luo city, and they instantly arrived around the restaurant and surrounded it. Meanwhile, all the powers within Luo city had set out as well. The Celestial Treasure Pavilion was the fastest to act. The president of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion's branch, Lan Qing, was the first to arrive at the scene, and he was first stunned when he saw the confrontational atmosphere here. After that, he immediately stood on Yi Xian's side. At the same time, countless experts from the Celestial Treasure Pavilion arrived behind him. In midair, Emissary Zhang stared fixedly at Luo Tian. You intend to rebel? Luo Tian's expression was calm. Rebel? Emissary Zhang, are you joking? As he spoke, he glanced at Yi Xian and said, according to my knowledge, the young lord doesn't hold any position in the Yang clan. Since he doesn't hold any position, then he can't order us around. Emissary Zhang flared up with rage when he heard this. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly chuckled. Brother Zhang, don't be angry. Emissary Zhang hesitated for a moment when he heard Yi Xian, and then he stood respectfully behind Yi Xian. Yi Xian gazed at Luo Tian, and Luo Tian's expression was calm. Yi Xian smiled. Let me guess. The reason you dared to act in this way is definitely because you have something to rely on. It's definitely someone from within the Yang clan. As he spoke, he grinned. I thought of someone, my older sister, Yang Nianxue. Yang Nianxue. Emissary Zhang's expression instantly changed when he heard this. He naturally knew of Yang Nianxue. Actually, there were many times when everyone felt that Yang Nianxue was the true young lord of the Yang clan. Because Yi Xian had practically never made an appearance in the past. The only reason everyone knew of Yi Xian was because they'd only found out about him recently. Emissary Zhang suddenly spoke in a low voice. I understand now. He's from the eldest young Mrs. line. The eldest young miss. Yi Xian looked at Emissary Zhang and smiled. My older sister stayed in the Yang clan, and many people followed her, right? Emissary Zhang nodded. There were many people by the eldest young Mrs. side, and they wanted to protect her. Young lord, you suddenly appeared. As he spoke, he looked at Luo Tian. They think that your appearance threatens the eldest young Mrs. position, and they're afraid that you'll seize the position of patriarch. Yi Xian turned to glance at Luo Tian, and he was speechless. He hadn't expected that he'd actually encounter such a melodramatic situation. Of course, he knew that it wasn't his older sister's idea, and it was his older sister's subordinates who'd made the decision on their own. However, he was also speechless. What are Luo Tian and the others thinking? Isn't Dad still alive? Are they starting an internal strife just like that? Meanwhile, Luo Tian suddenly spoke. If there's nothing else, young lord, then I'll be taking my leave. As soon as he finished speaking, he was about to leave. Although he supported Yang Nianxue, he wouldn't dare to act against Yi Xian even if he was given 100 guts. What a joke. Even if he really killed Yi Xian, would he be able to live? He definitely wouldn't be able to live. However, he didn't need to care too much about Yi Xian. After all, as he'd said, although Yi Xian was the young lord, he didn't have an actual position. Moreover, the young lord Yi Xian hadn't been officially announced yet. In short, he was on Yang Nianxue's side, and it wasn't just him, the people behind him were on Yang Nianxue's side as well. At this time, he couldn't afford to make any mistakes, and he had to stand on the right side. The colder he was to Yi Xian, the more support he would receive from the people behind him. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, Wait. Luo Tian stopped and turned to look at Yi Xian, but he didn't speak. Yi Xian smiled faintly. I'm very unhappy. He knew that he had to establish his authority today, otherwise, no one in the Yang clan would pay any attention to him in the future. Although he didn't care about the Yang clan's power, he was still the young lord of the Yang clan. How could he let these people look down on him? Many times, it was like this. You couldn't fight, and if you didn't fight, others would think you were a coward, weak, and easy to bully. Luo Tian looked at Yi Xian. Then what does the young lord want to do? Yi Xian turned to look at Lan Qing and smiled. Can you help me contact Miss Qin Guan? Lan Qing nodded, yes. Yi Xian smiled, help me contact her. Lan Qing nodded, opened his palm, and a token soared into the sky. The next moment, the depths of the starry sky split open, and a phantom image appeared in the sky. Soon, Qin Guan's image appeared in everyone's sight. At this moment, Qin Guan was in an underground palace, holding a compass in her hand. On the compass, a tiny array was spinning. At this moment, Qin Guan suddenly turned her head. When she saw Yi Xian, she was slightly stunned, and then smiled, young Master Yi. Yi Xian smiled, Miss Qin Guan, I need your help. Qin Guan smiled, what help? Yi Xian looked at Qin Guan, I need to borrow people. Qin Guan was stunned, and then said, borrow people? Yi Xian nodded, I want to replace the sector lord of Luocheng, so I need to borrow some people from you. Everyone, Qin Guan looked at Yi Xian, you want to clean up the Yang clan's internal people? Yi Xian nodded, yes. After a moment of silence, Qin Guan said, there are many people who support your sister. Yi Xian laughed, then I'll clean them all up. Qin Guan smiled, are you going to rebel? Yi Xian nodded, then I'll rebel. At the side, Emissary Zhang's expression froze, and his body started to tremble. It's over. This young master wants to rebel, he even wants to join forces with outsiders to attack the Yang clan. What should I do? In the starry sky, the corners of Qin Guan's mouth curled up slightly, borrow. As she spoke, she opened her palm, and a black command token suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian, activate it. Meanwhile, Luo Tian spoke in a low voice, Pavilion Master Qin Guan, are you sure you want to go against the Yang clan? Qin Guan blinked, and then she looked at Yi Xian, what about your father? Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, if father makes a move, then I'll call him younger sister. Qin Guan snapped her fingers and looked at Luo Tian. If Uncle Yang doesn't come out of his seclusion, I'll destroy your Yang clan. As she spoke, she pondered for a moment, touched her small cloth bag, and said with a smile, it really doesn't seem to be difficult. I seem to be a little arrogant, hee hee. Everyone. P.S. No more tickets. I have an idea. 7017K. Chapter 2386. Luo Tian instantly flared up with rage when he heard Qin Guan. How presumptuous. Qin Guan paid no attention to him, and she gazed at Yi Xian instead. I'll give you another command token. As she spoke, she opened her palm, and a golden command token floated over to Yi Xian. Moreover, the command token she'd given Yi Xian earlier was black. Qin Guan smiled. Go play by yourself. I'm going to get busy. Yi Xian hurriedly said, I borrowed a lot of money from your people. Qin Guan stopped and turned around to look at Yi Xian. How much did you borrow? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, over 4 billion universe veins. Qin Guan thought for a moment and said, then what do you intend to do? Yi Xian laughed bitterly. I can't return it to you in a short period of time. Qin Guan smiled. Then don't return it. Just take it as me sponsoring your academy. Lan Qing's expression froze. Yi Xian blinked. Sponsoring an academy? Qin Guan nodded. I understand your academy. It's not bad, and I can tell that you're serious. Of course, I want to sponsor something that's so meaningful. Not only can I sponsor money, but I can also sponsor some ancient books. However, I have a small request. Yi Xian was slightly curious. What request? Qin Guan said seriously, persist. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. I will. Qin Guan smiled. That's good. I have some things to do. I'll help you once I'm done. At that time, I'll make Wuxia Academy merge with Guanxian Academy, and we'll establish Guanxian Academy together. Yi Xian grinned. All right. With Qin Guan joining them, Guanxian Academy would be like a tiger that had grown wings. They had money if they wanted it. They had people if they wanted it. Without saying anything more, Qin Guan turned around and disappeared. After Qin Guan vanished, Lan Qing glanced at Yi Xian, and his expression became slightly strange. Cold sweat trickled down his back. He knew that Qin Guan and Yi Xian knew each other, but what he didn't know was that the relationship between Qin Guan and Yi Xian was a bit interesting. This young Master Yi might even become the male owner of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion. Rejoicing. Fortunately, he had formed a good karma with this person. Otherwise, things would get out of hand. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and looked at the black token in his hand. He didn't waste any time and directly activated it. Boom! The black token suddenly transformed into a beam of black light that shot into the sky. In the next moment, the beam of black light disappeared into the depths of the starry sky. Yi Xian raised his head and looked towards the depths of the starry sky. It didn't take long for two mysterious experts in black robes to suddenly walk out from there. The two mysterious powerhouses took a step forward and arrived right in front of Yi Xian. When they arrived at the scene, the entire Luoqing trembled and then became illusory. The God-rank realm. Luo Tian's expression instantly became solemn when he witnessed this scene. The two mysterious experts bowed respectfully to Yi Xian. Yi Xian turned around to glance at Luo Tian. Take him down. Luo Tian's expression instantly changed drastically. You. Meanwhile, the two mysterious experts charged at Luo Tian. Two God-rank realm experts. Luo Tian was astounded, and he hurriedly spoke furiously, attack. As soon as he finished speaking, the experts behind him were about to attack. Meanwhile, Yi Xian glanced coldly at them. Who dares? Bang! A ray of blood-red light shot into the sky from within Yi Xian. In an instant, a strand of terrifying bloodline pressure enveloped all the experts of Luo City. The expressions of the experts of Luo City changed violently when they sensed the terrifying bloodline pressure, and they didn't dare move again. Yi Xian was a genuine young master. Attacking the young master was a true act of rebellion. Meanwhile, emissary Zhang hurriedly stood on guard by Yi Xian's side, and he glanced coldly at the experts of Luo City. He'd been slightly panicked just now. He was really panicked when Yi Xian joined forces with outsiders to cause trouble for the Yang clan. But when he thought about it from another perspective, he realized that it was impossible for Yi Xian to rebel. Yi Xian was the young master. A genuine young master of the Yang clan. Yi Xian's objective was probably to establish his might. Yi Xian glanced at emissary Zhang and grinned. Needless to say, emissary Zhang was really not bad, and he deserved to be fostered properly. At the side, the experts of Celestial Treasure Pavilion that Lan Qing brought with him guarded around Yi Xian. Ever since he heard what Qin Guan said, Lan Qing had already treated Yi Xian as the future master of Celestial Treasure Pavilion. If he didn't show off now, he might not have the chance in the future. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly looked up, and deep in the starry sky, Luo Tian had been completely suppressed. Yi Xian retracted his gaze and looked at emissary Zhang. Now, you'll temporarily take over Luo world. As he spoke, he glanced at the experts of Luo City. Kill anyone who isn't convinced. Then, he walked towards the distance. Emissary Zhang hurriedly said, Yes, sir. As he spoke, he glanced at the experts of Luo world. Do you listen to Luo Tian or the young master? Everyone's expression was slightly ugly. Listen to Luo Tian or the young master? Emissary Zhang's gaze gradually turned cold when he saw them hesitate. This place had become a small country, and the emperor was far away. These people only knew about Luo Tian, but they didn't know about the Yang clan. Emissary Zhang aroused killing intent. However, he didn't attack. As a subordinate, the greatest taboo was to make decisions on his own. Emissary Zhang hurriedly followed Yi Xian, who was in the distance. Lan Qing glanced at Luo Tian, who was besieged in the sky, and then he shook his head. He knew that Luo Tian was finished. Unless the Yang clan really wanted Yang Nianxue to inherit the clan, or Yi Xian didn't have a good relationship with Yang Nianxue, otherwise, Luo Tian would have no chance of survival. A tiny subordinate dared to disobey the young master, and that was equivalent to breaking the rules. He naturally knew that Luo Tian wanted to show his loyalty. However, Luo Tian didn't understand that Luo Tian was just a fucking nobody. Luo Tian couldn't even be considered to be cannon fodder before the entire Yang clan, so what the fuck was he trying to show his loyalty for? Intelligence. Lan Qing shook his head and sighed. It was better to read more when one was free, so as to avoid one's intelligence not being sufficient and being doomed. Yi Xian and Emissary Zhang arrived at the city governor's estate. After they entered the estate, Yi Xian noticed that there wasn't a single soul within the estate. Obviously, they'd found out about what had occurred in the restaurant. Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings. Needless to say, the estate was huge, and it was like an imperial palace. Yi Xian chuckled lightly. It's suitable to be an academy. An academy. Emissary Zhang turned around to look at Yi Xian. Young master intends to establish an academy here? Yi Xian nodded, yes. Emissary Zhang hesitated for a moment and said, young master, forgive me for asking too much, but if you intend to establish a formidable power, then you're entirely capable of directly inheriting the Yang clan. Yi Xian shook his head, it's different. Emissary Zhang was slightly curious, what's different? Yi Xian smiled, the academy I established is quite different from the original intention of the Yang clan. It's unrealistic to change the entire Yang clan at once. Therefore, I can only rely on the Yang clan to develop an academy and slowly change the entire Yang clan in the end. Emissary Zhang was a little excited. Young master wants to fight for the position of crown prince? Yi Xian smiled, it's mine to begin with. Why bother fighting for it? After saying that, he walked into the distance. Emissary Zhang hesitated for a moment and said, eldest miss. Yi Xian didn't even turn his head. If elder sister wants it, I'll give it to her. In any case, there's no difference between her and me. Emissary Zhang was slightly stunned when he heard that. The next moment, he shook his head and smiled. Luo Tian was gone. In the beginning, he also thought that the relationship between Yi Xian and Yang Nianxue wasn't good, but now it seemed that the relationship between the siblings was very good. Since the siblings had a good relationship, then wouldn't Luo Tian be a fool? Yi Xian arrived at a quiet hall. There was a statue within the hall, and it was the statue of the green-clothed man. Yi Xian grinned as he gazed at the statue. Brother Zhang. Emissary Zhang suddenly appeared behind Yi Xian. Yi Xian pointed at the statue and said, remove this one. Then replace it with mine. Emissary Zhang was speechless. Emissary Zhang obeyed in the end, and it didn't take long for the statue within the hall to be replaced by Yi Xian. Yi Xian sat within the room. The two mysterious experts he'd called over earlier walked into the room, and there was another person between them. It was Luo Tian. However, Luo Tian's body was gone, and only his soul remained. Moreover, his soul was chained up by a red iron chain. The two mysterious experts brought Luo Tian over to Yi Xian, and then they bowed respectfully. Yi Xian smiled, thank you for your trouble. The two mysterious experts hurriedly shook their heads, and then respectfully retreated to the side. Yi Xian looked at Luo Tian and smiled, Lord Luo Tian, from now on, I will take over the Luo world. Luo Tian glared at Yi Xian, what right do you have? Yi Xian smiled, and just as he was about to speak, an old man suddenly walked into the hall. As soon as the old man walked into the hall, the two mysterious experts beside Yi Xian suddenly raised their heads, and then their gazes locked onto the old man. The old man ignored their gazes, and slowly walked in front of Yi Xian. He cupped his fists. Young master, I am Zhao Nye, the lord of the firmament world. Luo Tian is my subordinate. Yi Xian smiled. You came so quickly. Zhao Nye said solemnly, young master, Luo Tian didn't do anything wrong. Why are you treating him like this? Yi Xian looked Zhao Nye in the eye. Are you questioning me? Zhao Nye's expression was calm. I don't dare. It's just that Luo Tian didn't do anything wrong, yet young master is treating him like this. This is truly unreasonable, and it disappoints us subordinates. Yi Xian fell silent. Meanwhile, an old man by Yi Xian's side spoke abruptly. How laughable. You're just a subordinate, yet you're actually questioning your master. Who gave you the guts? They knew about the relationship between Yi Xian and Qin Guan, so they treated Yi Xian as one of their own. Zhao Nye glanced at the mysterious expert, and then he said calmly, Sir, the Celestial Treasure Pavilion has interfered in the internal affairs of my Yang clan. I've already reported this matter, and I hope your pavilion master can give me a reasonable explanation. Yi Xian said with a smile, Explain? What explanation? As he spoke, he stood up and walked over to Zhao Nye. In the past, I didn't care much about my identity as the young master. But now, I've changed my mind. I want to inherit the family business. I want to be the second generation. Zhao Nye's expression was calm. Just as he was about to speak, Yi Xian suddenly said, Cut the crap. Call for help. Ask the strongest person behind you to come out. It just so happens that I haven't called him father for a long time. Come, you call the big shot behind you, and I'll call my dad. Let's compete. Zhao Nye. 7017K. Chapter 2387. Who was the strongest person in the Yang clan? The green-robed man. Who was Yi Xian's father? The green-robed man. Zhao Nye was silent. The green-robed sword master was not someone he could come into contact with. However, if Yi Xian wanted to call him that, wouldn't it be a simple matter? They were father and son. Would Yi Xian dare to go against them? Would they dare to go against him? Thinking of this, Zhao Nye sighed. He suddenly realized that they were destined to lose this battle as soon as it began. Thinking of this, Zhao Nye sighed. He stood up and bowed, Young master, this is our fault. Please be magnanimous. Yi Xian suddenly stood up and slashed with his sword. Chi! Not far away, Luo Tian's soul was slashed by a ray of sword light. In an instant, Luo Tian's soul was absorbed. Seeing this, Zhao Nye's expression changed. He looked at Yi Xian and said angrily, Young, at this moment, 3 auras enveloped his body. 3 upper gods. Zhao Nye was shocked and did not dare to act up. Yi Xian looked at Zhao Nye and smiled, magnanimous? I am not that magnanimous. Zhao Nye stared at Yi Xian and did not speak. Emissary Zhang looked at Zhao Nye coldly, his eyes filled with killing intent. Whether it was Luo Tian or Zhao Nye, they were not that respectful towards Yi Xian. Under normal circumstances, these people did not have the right to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian suddenly smiled, You are from the firmament world? Hearing this, Zhao Nye was on guard, Young master, you, Yi Xian's lips curled up, From now on, I am in charge of the firmament world. Zhao Nye's expression turned cold, Young master, you have no position and no right. Yi Xian suddenly said, The Yang clan was founded by my father, so it belongs to my family. Since the firmament world belongs to my family, isn't it normal for me to take it back? Zhao Nye looked at Yi Xian without saying a word. Yi Xian smiled and said, The 2 seniors of Celestial Treasure Pavilion invite Realm Lord Zhao to drink tea. At this moment, Zhao Nye's body suddenly became illusory. An old man from Celestial Treasure Pavilion said solemnly, Young Master Yi, it's too late. He left. Yi Xian frowned. Zhao Nye gazed at Yi Xian in silence, and it didn't take long for him to vanish completely. How dare you! At this moment, Emissary Zhang suddenly flew into a rage. These people dare to look down on you, young master. This is too presumptuous. Yi Xian laughed and said, I am rarely in the clan, it is normal that they do not recognize me. Emissary Zhang's face turned cold. This is not normal. They are committing a crime. Yi Xian smiled and said, take care of them slowly. As he spoke, he opened his palm, and a spatial ring appeared in his hand. This was Luo Tian's spatial ring. Yi Xian glanced at the spatial ring, and there were a total of 700 million universe veins in it. 700 million. It wasn't a small amount. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth lifted slightly. He put away the spatial ring and looked at Emissary Zhang. Help me send a message to Guanxian Academy's Qingqiu. Ask her to personally come here and take over Luo World. Emissary Zhang bowed slightly. All right. Yi Xian added, by the way, you should also send some competent people here to help manage it. Guanxian Academy lacked people the most, and Emissary Zhang's God World should have many talents. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Emissary Zhang bowed slightly. All right. This subordinate will arrange it. As soon as he finished speaking, he left silently. Yi Xian suddenly turned around and looked at the two mysterious experts behind him. He took out the golden token that Qin Guan gifted him and asked, Seniors, what kind of expert can this token summon? One of them said solemnly, an expert above High God. Above High God. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. The experts under Qin Guan were very terrifying. As if he thought of something, Yi Xian asked again, Seniors, why do you listen to Miss Qin Guan? One of them smiled and said, Pavilion Master Qin is very generous. The other person nodded hurriedly. Very generous. Yi Xian was speechless. Without a doubt, these two fellows were bribed by money. The Tao of money was invincible. Yi Xian shook his head with a smile and collected his thoughts. Then, he looked at the spatial ring in his hand. He now had a total of 7 billion universe veins. He had to say, he had never been so rich before. Breakthrough to soul formation stage. Yi Xian immediately returned to Xiao Ta. He decided to break through to the soul formation stage. Now that he had money and time, he could break through to the soul formation stage. Otherwise, he felt like his cultivation base would soon be insufficient. His enemies were becoming more and more powerful. After returning to Xiao Ta, Yi Xian used a Daobi to break through to the soul formation stage. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian suddenly asked, Brother Bai, can you really help me increase my cultivation base without any upper limit? Daobi was silent for a moment before replying, any cultivation base that you already know is fine. However, it will also depend on your own situation. You can increase your cultivation base by 2 stages at most. Any higher and your body and consciousness won't be able to withstand it. Yi Xian said in a solemn voice, Brother Bai, I am still curious about something. You are the executor of fate, which means that you know the fate of Dao Yi, right? Daobi was a little wary. What do you want to do? Yi Xian smiled. I am just curious. Daobi was silent for a moment before replying, You are right. Yi Xian hurriedly asked, in other words, do you know when Dao Yi or a living being will die? Daobi said, yes. Yi Xian was silent for a moment before the corner of his mouth slightly raised. Daobi was on guard. What do you want to do? Yi Xian said in a solemn voice, I think I can become a fortune teller in the future. I can charge a fee for fortune telling. Daobi said, You don't do anything stupid. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. Why? Daobi sighed in a low voice. What you do is equivalent to revealing heaven's secrets. Revealing heaven's secrets will have serious consequences. Yi Xian was a little curious. What consequences? Daobi was silent for a long time before finally saying nothing. Consequences? What consequences? It found that there really seemed to be no consequences. Who would dare to punish this idiot? In any case, it didn't dare. Dedeabi sighed in a low voice. Young Master Yi, if you reveal heaven's secrets. Think about it. If a person knows in advance when he will die, what will he do? Yi Xian said, to change his own fate. Dedeabi said, yes. But under normal circumstances, he can't change it. Yi Xian was a little curious. Why can't he change it? Dedeabi said in a deep voice, a person will die for a reason. His death is only an effect. Yi Xian was silent for a moment before saying, you are the executor of fate. In other words, your master is the controller of fate. He controls the fate of all living beings. Whoever he wants to die will die, right? Dedeabi said, no. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Explain it to me. Dedeabi was silent for a moment before saying, I am just a pen. Yi Xian's face instantly darkened. Xiaota suddenly said, lousy pen, can you read my fate? Dedeabi said indifferently, you will die a horrible death. F***ck. Xiaota suddenly said angrily, lousy pen, are you unhappy with me? Dedeabi said angrily, you just found out? I have been unhappy with you for a long time, okay? Xiaota said, one-on-one. Dedeabi said, one-on-one then. Xiaota said, my master is green shirt swordsman. My sister is heaven's fate. You choose. Dedeabi said angrily, is this a one-on-one fight? Xiaota said indifferently, you can also call for help. Dedeabi, Yi Xian shook his head with a smile. He ignored the two quarreling fellows. He sat cross-legged on the ground and started absorbing the universe veins. With enough universe veins, he would have the confidence to cultivate. While Yi Xian was cultivating, Qing Qiu came to Luo World. In the main hall of the city lord's mansion, Qing Qiu sat at the head seat. Not far in front of her was Emissary Zhang and a group of people from the upper god realm. Emissary Zhang looked at Qing Qiu with a respectful expression. He knew that the relationship between this little girl and Yi Xian was not ordinary. What surprised him was that he actually felt that this little girl was very dangerous. Very dangerous. Qing Qiu was only an ancestor god, but she gave him a very dangerous feeling. This shocked him. Qing Qiu said with a smile, so those people from Luo World are still here? Emissary Zhang collected his thoughts and nodded, yes. However, I'm afraid they won't be easy to use. After all, they are from Luo Heaven. Qing Qiu blinked, that's easy. Find a few people to kill, and they will be very obedient. Emissary Zhang's expression froze. Qing Qiu stood up and walked slowly to the entrance of the main hall. She looked up into the distance and said softly, Luo World is very big. We need more people. Not only do I need powerful people, but I also need people who are cultured. Emissary Zhang nodded, I'll do it. Qing Qiu nodded slightly, besides that, we need to take over the entire Luo World. Since we want to take over the entire Luo World, we have to deal with the forces in Luo World. Help me tell them that the order in Luo World will be set by Guanchuan Academy. Emissary Zhang hesitated and said, if that's the case, will it cause chaos in Luo World? Qing Qiu smiled and said, just kill a group of people. Emissary Zhang was embarrassed. Why is this little girl more violent than young Master Yi? Qing Qiu asked abruptly, what's the name of that person who disrespected my brother? Emissary Zhang was stunned, and then he said, Zhao Nye. He's the Lord of Firmament World. Firmament World is more than double the size of our Luo World, and he's at least a third-level high god realm expert. Qing Qiu's eyes narrowed, Zhao Nye. As she spoke, she looked up into the sky. In the next moment, she closed her eyes slowly, and it didn't take long for the space in the distance to warp. Emissary Zhang was stunned. What's she trying to do? It didn't take long for an image to appear in the sky, and it gradually solidified. It was Zhao Nye. Emissary Zhang was completely stunned by this scene. What's she trying to do? At this moment, Zhao Nye seemed to have sensed something as well, and he immediately turned around to look at Qing Qiu. Qing Qiu looked at Zhao Nye and opened her palm, sword. Bang! Suddenly, a sword tore through the sky above Zhao Nye. Qing Qiu's face was expressionless. Slash. The sword descended in a straight line. Bang! Zhao Nye didn't even have time to react before the sword entered the top of his head. In an instant, Zhao Nye was instantly wiped out. What the fuck? Emissary Zhang fell onto his chair, and his face was filled with disbelief. Qing Qiu clapped her hands, and then she turned around to look at Emissary Zhang. Don't tell my brother that I know how to use a sword. Emissary Zhang was speechless. Qing Qiu was about to leave when she suddenly looked to the right and blinked. Brother has reached the soul formation realm. Hee hee. As she spoke, she snapped her fingers, and she instantly advanced from the ancestor god realm to the soul formation realm. Emissary Zhang was dumbfounded, and his entire body went numb. P.S. It's autumn, and the weather is getting colder. 7017K. Chapter 2388. She had reached the soul formation stage from the ancestral god realm. And it had happened in an instant. Emissary Zhang felt like his brain was lacking. The most terrifying thing was that this little girl had just killed Zhao Nye with a single slash of her sword. That Zhao Nye was at least a level 3 upper immortal realm expert. What kind of little girl was she? Emissary Zhang looked at Qing Qiu as if he was looking at a monster, his heart filled with shock. At this moment, Yi Xian appeared at the door. At this moment, Yi Xian had reached the soul formation stage. Seeing Yi Xian, Qing Qiu smiled sweetly. Brother. Yi Xian was about to speak when he sized up Qing Qiu and was shocked. You've reached the soul formation stage? Qing Qiu nodded. Yi Xian was a little curious. When did you reach it? Qing Qiu giggled. Just now. Isn't it a coincidence? Yi Xian glanced at Qing Qiu, and then he said, You broke through just now? Qing Qiu nodded hurriedly. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian gently rubbed Qing Qiu's little head and said with a smile, You're amazing. Qing Qiu smiled slightly. Brother, how's your human realm sword intent? Yi Xian opened his palm, and a gust of sword intent slowly floated out of his palm. Human realm sword intent. Yi Xian looked at the sword intent in his hand with a solemn expression. After not seeing it for a long time, he realized that his sword intent had become stronger again. At this moment, Qing Qiu suddenly said, It's not enough. Yi Xian looked at Qing Qiu and Qing Qiu said in a low voice, Brother's sword intent is not even at the initial level. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Initial level? Qing Qiu nodded. When I can use my sword intent to destroy a world like the Luo realm, then I'll be at the initial level. Yi Xian was speechless. Emissary Zhang hesitated for a moment before he said, He's going to crush Luo dimension with pure sword intent? Qing Qiu nodded. Emissary Zhang smiled bitterly. I'm afraid it will be difficult. Qing Qiu was expressionless. Is it very difficult? I think it's very simple. Emissary Zhang, Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. He didn't think that Qing Qiu was lying. After all, who was the girl in front of him? Qing Qiu suddenly said, Brother, leave the sword intent to me. I want your sword Dao to improve rapidly. I'm off to work. With that, she turned around and left. After leaving the main hall, Qing Qiu started to get busy. She wanted to change the entire Luo world. Luo world was big enough. If everyone in Luo world believed in Yi Xian, then Yi Xian's mortal world sword intent would change. Of course, this was not a simple matter. Yi Xian's sword Dao was destined to not be successful in one step. He could only do it slowly. In the main hall, Yi Xian was listening to Emissary Zhang's report. Emissary Zhang didn't dare to say anything about Zhao Nye. If Qing Qiu could kill Zhao Nye in a second, then she could kill him in a second too. He still didn't dare to provoke Qingqiu. Yi Xian suddenly asked, "How is Zhao Nia in Song World?" Emissary Zhang's expression froze. What else could he do? He's gone. Yi Xian looked at Emissary Zhang. What's wrong? Emissary Zhang shook his head. Young master, you have to solve one thing. Many people in Yang family don't respect you. With that, he hesitated before asking, can you contact Sword Master? Yi Xian laughed. If I have to look for my father for such a small matter, then wouldn't I be too useless? Emissary Zhang said in a deep voice. But one word from Sword Master can change your current situation. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. It's different. Although I am the Yang family's young master, I have to make the Yang family submit to me. Even if my father knew about my current situation, he wouldn't care about me. If I don't even have this ability, how can I manage the entire Yang family? Emissary Zhang nodded. That's true. Yi Xian looked at Emissary Zhang and smiled. Follow me. When I am in power, you will be my right-hand man. Hearing this, Emissary Zhang immediately knelt down. This subordinate is willing to follow young master forever, even if it means death. Yi Xian blinked. If I fight with my father, who will you help? Emissary Zhang looked at Yi Xian in astonishment. Yi Xian smiled. Who will you help? After struggling for a while, Emissary Zhang gritted his teeth. I will follow young master. From today onwards, I will follow young master and not the Yang family. Yi Xian looked at Emissary Zhang for a while and helped him up. You're at the first level upper god state now, right? Emissary Zhang nodded. Yi Xian smiled. What do I need to reach the second level? Emissary Zhang said in a deep voice, money. Yi Xian asked, how much? After a moment of silence, Emissary Zhang said, at least 1.5 billion. After saying that, he looked at Yi Xian with anticipation. Yi Xian thought for a while and said, forget it. Pretend I didn't ask anything just now. After saying that, he turned around and left. Emissary Zhang was petrified on the spot. At this moment, a storage ring suddenly floated in front of Emissary Zhang. There were 1.5 billion in the storage ring. At the same time, Yi Xian's voice came from afar. Come. Emissary Zhang was overjoyed. He quickly kept the storage ring and chased after him. Yi Xian did not stay in the Luo world. Instead, he used the green profound sword to travel through time and space and arrived at the Wenren clan. He had spent more than 1 billion on Wenren Lan back then. This money could not be spent in vain. As for Emissary Zhang, he had already arranged for him to cultivate in Xiao Ta. If he cultivated outside, who knew how long it would take for him to reach the second level upper god state? When Yi Xian arrived at the Wenren clan, Yi Xian instantly felt that something was wrong. The atmosphere in the Wenren clan was very tense. Inside the main hall, Wenren Lan led a group of people and was confronting the Wenren clan's patriarch, Wenren Yun. Wenren Yun looked at Wenren Lan in front of him. Are you trying to force me to abdicate? Wenren Lan's expression was calm. Dad, why don't you think about it from another perspective? Look, your daughter is so outstanding. Shouldn't you be happy? Wenren Yun was furious. Happy? Why should I be happy when you want to force me to abdicate? Wenren Lan looked at Wenren Yun. I'm your daughter. Wenren Yun stared fixedly at Wenren Lan. Is there a daughter who would force me to abdicate like you? Wenren Yun sighed softly. Dad, let's get straight to the point. Are you going to abdicate? Wenren Yun's expression was calm. No. Wenren Lan nodded. She stood up and said, summon the ancestor. I want the ancestor to decide. Everyone was speechless. Bang! Meanwhile, a terrifying aura suddenly appeared within the Wenren clan. In the next moment, a ray of white light appeared within the main hall. The god state. Even though it was only a strand of a soul, its aura was so formidable that all the experts present here felt an invisible pressure. Meanwhile, an old man appeared within the main hall. It was the ancestor of the Wenren clan. Everyone hurriedly bowed when they saw the ancestor of the Wenren clan. However, the ancestor of the Wenren clan didn't say anything. He just looked up into the distance and smiled. "Since you're here, why don't you come out and meet me?" Everyone was shocked when they heard this, and they hurriedly turned to look outside the main hall. Meanwhile, a man appeared at the entrance to the main hall. It was Yi Xian. Wenren Lan was first stunned when she saw Yi Xian, and then she was delighted. She hurriedly ran over to Yi Xian and smiled. "Why are you here?" Yi Xian smiled. "I'm here to see you." Wenren Lan rolled her eyes at Yi Xian. "There are many people here. Why are you saying such mushy words?" "Huh?" Yi Xian was dumbfounded. "Mushy? Are my words mushy? Fuck." Yi Xian felt like his brain wasn't enough to process all of this. Meanwhile, Wenren walked over to Yi Xian, and she smiled. "Young Master Yi." Yi Xian looked at Wenren Lan and smiled. "Miss Yi, long time no see." Wenren Lan smiled. "I never expected that young Master Yi would come to the Wenren clan." Yi Xian laughed. Meanwhile, the Wenren clan's patriarch suddenly looked at Yi Xian and frowned. "Who are you?" Yi Xian looked at the Wenren clan's patriarch and was about to speak. At this moment, the Wenren clan's ancestor suddenly turned to look at the Wenren clan's patriarch and raised her hand to slap him. Slap. Before everyone could react, the Wenren clan's patriarch was slapped, and his body shattered. Everyone was stunned. The Wenren clan's ancestor was stunned as well. The Wenren clan's ancestor glanced coldly at the Wenren clan's patriarch. "If you don't know how to talk, then don't." Wenren Yun was speechless. The Wenren clan's ancestor turned to look at Yi Xian and smiled. "Little friend, how should I address you?" Yi Xian smiled. "Yi Xian." The Wenren clan's ancestor nodded slightly, and then looked at Wenren Lan. "Little girl, is this your friend?" Wenren Lan nodded. "Yes." As she spoke, she bowed slightly. "Ancestor, I summoned you here because I want to become the Wenren clan's patriarch. However, my father refuses to give up his position. So, I want you to help me persuade him." The Wenren clan's ancestor had a calm expression on his face. He glanced at Wenren Yun and said, "How did you become the patriarch?" Wenren Yun was speechless. The Wenren clan's ancestor gazed at Wenren Lan. "From this moment onward, you're the patriarch of my Wenren clan." Wenren Lan was slightly stunned, and then she hurriedly said, "Thank you, ancestor." The Wenren clan's ancestor glanced at Yi Xian and grinned. "This little girl is still young. Little friend, please take care of her." Yi Xian smiled, "Of course." The Wenren clan's ancestor nodded. "Until next time." As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished completely. Everyone here was gazing at Yi Xian. No one here was stupid, so they were naturally able to discern the Wenren clan's ancestors' attitude towards Yi Xian. It wasn't just respect, it was slight reverence and flattery. Wenren Lan turned around and gazed at Yi Xian as well. "You don't know me, but I really respect you." Yi Xian smiled, "Is that so?" Wenren Lan glared at Yi Xian. "Stop pretending." Yi Xian roared with laughter and said, "Congratulations on becoming the patriarch of the Wenren clan." Wenren Lan spoke softly, "Didn't you want to establish an academy?" Yi Xian nodded. Wenren Lan smiled and said, "Send someone. Just let me know if you need anything." Yi Xian smiled, "Thank you." Wenren Lan shook her head. "I should be the one thanking you." Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "Why don't you help me establish an academy?" He really lacked manpower right now. Wenren Lan frowned slightly, "But I don't study." Yi Xian was speechless. Wenren Lan suddenly said, "I'll do it." Yi Xian turned around to look at Wenren Lan. Wenren Lan smiled, "Young Master Yi, if you don't worry, then leave it to me. I'll get it done." Yi Xian smiled, "That's naturally good." With that, he smiled and said, "Then I'm leaving. If you need anything, just contact me." Wenren Lan suddenly interrupted Yi Xian, "You're leaving now?" Yi Xian looked at Wenren Lan and smiled, "Is there anything else?" Wenren Lan looked straight at Yi Xian, "You came here to establish an academy?" Yi Xian nodded. Wenren Lan flew into a rage, "You just said you came to see me." Yi Xian's expression froze. Within the hall, the faces of the Wenren clan experts instantly darkened. The Wenren clan probably wants to change their surname. 7017K. Chapter 2389. As he gazed at the angry Wenren Lan, Yi Xian shook his head and smiled, "There's no conflict between me coming to see you and running the academy." Wenren Lan glared at Yi Xian and wanted to say something, but Wenren Yun suddenly pulled on her arm and said, "You're the patriarch now, be careful with your words." Wenren Lan's face was expressionless. "Everyone, leave." All the experts of the Wenren clan were speechless. Wenren Lan frowned slightly, "Do all of you not understand? We want to have a private conversation." Everyone was speechless. In the end, everyone left. Wenren Lan was the patriarch now, and it was decided by the Wenren clan's ancestor, so no one dared to object. However, the Wenren clan's patriarch, Wenren Yun, hadn't left. At this moment, Wenren Yun was still slightly unwilling. How could he be willing to let his own daughter take the position of patriarch? But he was very clear that he couldn't change anything. He couldn't change the ancestors' decision at all. What he wanted to do now was to build a good relationship with this daughter of his. Wenren Lan glanced at Wenren Yun and was slightly displeased. "Dad, can you not disturb us? Go do what you need to do." Wenren Yun's face darkened. "I'm your dad." Wenren Lan frowned slightly. "I didn't say I wasn't, I just asked you not to disturb us." Wenren Yun hesitated for a moment and said, "You're the patriarch of the Wenren clan, you have to remember your identity. Don't be emotional because of a man, you." Wenren Lan sighed softly. "Dad, do you think he would take a fancy to my Wenren clan?" Wenren Yun was stunned. Wenren Lan shook her head. "Would a person who could make an ancestor at the high god realm feel such reverence for our Wenren clan's business?" Wenren Yun glanced at Yi Xian and fell silent. Wenren Lan shook her head. "Leave." Wenren Yun glanced at Yi Xian and laughed in self-ridicule before turning around and leaving. After Wenren Yun left, Wenren Lan looked at Yi Xian and didn't speak. Yi Xian smiled. "Why are you looking at me?" Wenren Lan fell silent for a moment. "Go. My sister and I will take care of the academy's matters." Wenren Ying held Wenren Lan's hand and shook her head. "Don't be like this." Wenren Lan's face was expressionless as she turned around and disappeared on the spot. Wenren sighed in a low voice. Then she looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "Young Master Yi, can we talk?" Yi Xian laughed and said, "Of course." Wenren said softly, "She likes you." Yi Xian smiled. "I can feel it." Wenren asked, "Do you like her?" Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. "Miss Yi, she only likes me. She doesn't love me. Liking and love are two different things." Wenren looked at Yi Xian. "Her love is love." Yi Xian still wanted to say something, but Wenren said, "You have a lot of women, right?" Yi Xian was speechless. Wenren said softly, "This girl is very hot-tempered. She definitely doesn't want to be with you with other women." "You are a smart person, so you should have guessed it. So, you don't want to mess with her. But your charm is too great." Yi Xian said with a smile, "Am I attractive?" Wenren nodded. "You are rich, handsome, powerful, and have a strong background. You also know how to make women like you. Most importantly, you are very courageous. When you saved me, you were very domineering. She must have fallen in love with you at that time. Yi Xian thought for a while and said with a smile, now that you mention it, I find that if I were a woman, I would also fall in love with myself. Wenren was speechless. Xiao Ta suddenly said, young master, can you be more shameless? Yi Xian was speechless. Wenren shook her head and smiled. Young master Yi, I forgot to tell you. You have another terrible thing about you, which is that you are shameless. Yi Xian's face suddenly darkened. Am I that shameless? Wenren chuckled. Do you like Miss Lan? Yi Xian thought for a while and said, I don't hate her. Wenren's expression froze. Small Tower sighed in a low voice. F***ck, young master, do you know how trashy your words are? Yi Xian said calmly, then what do you want me to say? I really don't hate her. Xiao Ta was speechless. Dedeabi suddenly said, we can't let her come to the Milky Way. In front of Yi Xian, Wenren shook her head and smiled. Young master Yi, you. Yi Xian smiled. Miss Yi, do you like me? Wenren was slightly stunned. Yi Xian asked again, do you like me? Wenren was silent for a while and said, I don't hate her. As soon as she said that, she was also stunned. Yi Xian smiled. Then he said, I'll come to see you another day. Then, he took out a storage ring and put it in Wenren's hand. This is the money for the establishment of the academy. I will send people to help you. Then, he turned around and left. Wenren looked at the storage ring in her hand and said nothing. At this time, Wenren Lan appeared next to Wenren. She looked into the distance. Sister, do you like him? Wenren Lan rolled her eyes at Wenren Lan. Silly girl, you. Wenren Lan turned around and looked at Wenren Lan. You are always like this. You never dare to look into your heart. Then, she looked into the distance and said softly, isn't he 100 times better than Mu Wen? Wenren Lan was silent. Wenren Lan said again, don't have any psychological burden. Anyway, nothing happened between you and Mu Wen. Wenren Lan smiled. Silly girl, he is very far away from us. What you see now is only the tip of the iceberg of his true strength. Besides, there must be many excellent women around him. Wenren Lan said indifferently, so what? Wenren Lan sighed in her heart. There was a trace of worry in her eyes. After Yi Xian left the Wenren clan, he returned to Qing City. With the Qingxian sword, it was easy for him to go anywhere he wanted. And when he returned to Qing City, he was shocked. The entire Qing province had undergone earth-shaking changes. Today's Qing province, Kanglan Academy had become Guanxian Academy, and Guanxian Academy had become a superpower in Qing province. With the help of Guanxian Academy, the entire Qing province's martial arts civilization rose like a rocket. Yi Xian came to Guanxian Academy. This used to be Kanglan Academy. When he came here, a sense of familiarity arose. Yi Xian smiled. He looked up. Inside the academy, there was the sound of reading from time to time. Yi Xian went directly to Kanglan Palace. In front of Kanglan Palace, there were hundreds of students sitting cross-legged. The sound of reading just now came from these students. And in front of these students, a man was teaching. It was none other than Imo Yinchi. Yi Xian looked at Imo Yinchi and smiled. The current Imo Yinchi was no longer as immature and flashy as before. There was only maturity and steadiness. He had grown up. Yi Xian suddenly thought of the scene when he had just arrived at Kanglan Academy. At that time, he was really happy. And Jianghu, Shaoqi, Baizhe, full of memories. The smile on Yi Xian's face grew wider. At this moment, Imo Yinchi, who was teaching in the distance, seemed to have sensed something and suddenly raised his head to look at Yi Xian. When he saw Yi Xian, Imo Yinchi was stunned at first, and then he smiled, "Why are you back?" Hearing this, the students suddenly turned around. When they saw Yi Xian, all of them were stunned, and then they hurriedly stood up and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Dean. Dean. All the students were extremely excited. Because Yi Xian was really too mysterious. Yi Xian rarely came to this academy, and many students who joined the academy had only heard of Yi Xian but had never seen Yi Xian. Therefore, Yi Xian had always been a legendary existence, and at this moment, they had never imagined that the legendary Dean would actually return to the academy. Yi Xian glanced at the students and smiled, no need to be so polite. All the students stood up and sized up Yi Xian curiously. Yi Xian smiled, isn't he much more handsome than the statue? When he arrived, he noticed that there was a statue of him at the foot of the mountain, and it was very large and very long. Hearing Yi Xian's words, all the students instantly laughed. At this moment, a girl around the age of 16 or 17 suddenly ran over to Yi Xian, and she looked at Yi Xian. Dean, you're a swordsman, right? Yi Xian nodded, yes. The girl blinked, can I perform? As soon as she finished speaking, her face was filled with anticipation. The other students were the same. Yi Xian roared with laughter, sure. As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his palm, and in the next moment, the azure sword suddenly shot into the sky. After it entered the clouds, it shook violently, and then countless swords throughout Azure Prefecture suddenly shook violently before transforming into rays of light that shot into the sky. In the end, they converged in the sky above Guanxian Academy like a river. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of thousands of swords had converged in the sky above Guanxian Academy. At this moment, all the experts of Azure Prefecture turned to look at Guanxian Academy. That man has returned. All the students of Guanxian Academy looked up at the hundreds of thousands of swords in the sky, and they were extremely shocked. The current Azure Prefecture's martial arts civilization had far surpassed the past, but there weren't many true swordsman experts, and there wasn't anyone as strong as Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly commanded in his mind, and the hundreds of thousands of swords directly shot into the sky and went straight into the depths of the starry sky. This one shot caused the entire galaxy to tremble. Yi Xian suddenly pressed down with his right hand, and the hundreds of thousands of swords fell straight down from the depths of the starry sky, and the entire sky was directly torn apart. Looking at the hundreds of thousands of swords falling straight down, the students below were horrified and retreated one after another. However, when the swords arrived several thousand feet above Guanxian Academy, all the swords suddenly stopped in unison. Seeing this scene, the students immediately heaved a sigh of relief. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly. With a flick of his sleeve, all the swords suddenly transformed into rays of light that vanished in the sky, returning to their rightful owners. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the azure sword returned to his hand. He looked at the little girl in front of him and smiled, "Am I handsome?" The little girl nodded vigorously, "Handsome." Yi Xian laughed heartily. At this moment, Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Young lord, I also want to show off." Yi Xian. P.S. Thank you, vast blue starry sky, old you once said, book friend 565425777, one sword urges updates, waiting for readers to tip. There are still many readers, so forgive me for not being able to list them one by one. Sorry, thank you for your usual tips and votes. I dare not guarantee that I will read other comments, but for those that tip and vote, I will definitely read them every day, and update them at any time. Thank you for your tips and support. Love you all. 7017K. Chapter 2390. Hearing Xiao Ta's words, Yi Xian's face darkened. You're going to pretend too? Xiao Ta said, That's right. Since little soul has done it, let me do it too. Yi Xian said with a smile, How do you want to pretend? Xiao Ta was silent for a moment, then said, Watch me. With that, he suddenly rushed out of Yi Xian's body. Boom! A golden light shot into the sky. Rumble. In an instant, a huge tower suddenly appeared in the sky above Guanxian Academy. This huge tower was hundreds of thousands of feet tall, covering the sky and covering the sun. Seeing this huge tower, all the students present were stunned. Someone exclaimed, "What a huge tower! It should be able to store a lot of things." Yi Xian, in the sky, Xiao Ta suddenly trembled violently. In the next instant, a terrifying pressure swept down from the sky. Boom! In an instant, the entire firmament world was in an uproar. Everyone's expression changed drastically. This Xiao Ta could totally destroy the entire firmament world. Yi Xian's expression also changed slightly. He hurriedly said, "Xiao Ta, that's enough." In the sky, Xiao Ta laughed loudly. "Young master, I haven't had enough of pretending." Yi Xian's face instantly darkened. At this moment, Xiao Ta suddenly turned into a golden light and descended. Boom! In an instant, the entire firmament world was directly stored into Xiao Ta's body. Yi Xian, inside Xiao Ta, everyone was dumbfounded. Soon, someone discovered that the flow of time inside Xiao Ta was different from the outside. Uproar. Inside Xiao Ta, countless students were completely in an uproar. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian frowned. With a thought, Xiao Ta directly turned into a golden light and disappeared. Everything returned to normal. In the field, an Xian and the students were still in shock. Yi Xian was speechless. Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Young master, why are you stopping me? Let me pretend a little longer." Yi Xian was speechless. Meanwhile, Mo Yinshi said abruptly, "Everyone, study by yourselves. Self-study." When the students heard Mo Yinshi's words, none of them moved. They were still surrounding Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled and said, "I'll have a chat with your instructor." Hearing this, those students retreated unwillingly. Mo Yinshi walked in front of Yi Xian. He sized up Yi Xian, then smiled. "Why did you suddenly think of coming back?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "I missed you guys." Mo Yinshi shook his head. "As if I'd believe you." Yi Xian laughed. "Let's go." Mo Yinshi nodded. As the two of them walked to the side, Yi Xian said softly, "Great changes have taken place in the Green Province." Mo Yinshi smiled and said, "It's all thanks to you." Yi Xian smiled and said, "That's a good thing." Mo Yinshi nodded. "According to what I know, you don't just want to change the Green Province, you want to change the entire universe?" Yi Xian nodded. Mo Yinshi turned to look at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "You weren't like this in the past." Yi Xian smiled and said, "What was I like in the past?" Mo Yinshi said softly, "At that time, you valued loyalty and relationships, but it was only limited to your friends and family." Yi Xian fell silent. Mo Yinshi smiled and said, "The current you has changed a lot." Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. "I've experienced a lot." Mo Yinshi nodded. "I can tell." Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings, and then he smiled and said, "Once I fulfill my wish in the future, I'll return to Green Province to be a teacher." Mo Yinshi roared with laughter. "You're welcome. But my intuition tells me that this day probably won't come." Yi Xian turned to look at Mo Yinshi. "Why?" Mo Yinshi said in a low voice, "Intuition." Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, "Brother Bai, you're the executor of fate, so you should know a lot." Dedeabi fell silent for a moment, and then he said, "I don't know your fate." Yi Xian was slightly puzzled. "Why?" Dedeabi said indifferently, "There are two big shots who have changed your fate, so you're not under my control at all. My master can control you, but..." At this point, he didn't continue speaking. Yi Xian said in a low voice, "In other words, my future fate is unknown?" Dedeabi said, "Yes. However, I think it's unlikely that you'll come back to teach." Yi Xian was slightly puzzled. "Why?" Dedeabi said indifferently, "Intuition." Yi Xian, Dedeabi said again, "Young Master Yi, forgive me for speaking bluntly. Although you have 3 big shots supporting you, but my intuition tells me that your future might not be so good. Don't ask me why, it's just intuition." Yi Xian was silent. Xiao Ta said indifferently, young master, don't panic. As long as Sister Tianming is here, you will be here. Sister Tianming is the eternal God. De Daobi sighed softly. Xiao Ta suddenly said, stupid Ta, are you questioning Sister Tianming? De Daobi said angrily, stupid Ta, don't speak without thinking, when did I question heaven's fate? Xiao Ta said indifferently, then do you think what I said makes sense? De Daobi was silent for a moment, and then he said, I don't want to talk nonsense with an uncultured stupid Ta like you. You don't know anything, only know how to act cool. Xiao Ta, Yi Xian shook his head and smiled, retracting his thoughts. He was about to speak, when Mo Yinchi suddenly said, you guys talk. With that, he turned and left. Yi Xian looked into the distance. Not far away, a woman was standing there. The person who came was Jianghu. Today, Jianghu was wearing a pure white dress, her long hair draped over her shoulders, and there was a long saber at her waist. This was what Yi Xian had given her back then. In Jianghu's hand, there was also a chicken drumstick. Yi Xian smiled slightly. He walked in front of Jianghu, and then said with a smile, Anji, long time no see. Jianghu nodded slightly. Yi Xian smiled and said, let's walk together. Jianghu nodded. The two of them walked towards the back of the mountain. On the way, Yi Xian suddenly grabbed Jianghu's hand. Jianghu hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he chose not to break free. Yi Xian pulled Jianghu into the distance. He turned to look at Jianghu, and said with a smile, is the chicken drumstick delicious? Jianghu lowered his head slightly. You cook delicious. Yi Xian laughed. He opened his palm, and the Qingxian sword suddenly turned into a sword light and disappeared into the distance. Not long after, the Qingxian sword returned in front of Yi Xian, and on the tip of the Qingxian sword, there was a chicken. Little soul, Yi Xian smiled and said, let's go, I'll make something for you. With that, he brought Jianghu to the back of the mountain, found an empty space, and then began to roast chicken for Jianghu. The two of them just sat there. Jianghu looked at the golden roast chicken in front of her, and her saliva almost flowed out. Yi Xian glanced at Jianghu, shook his head, and smiled. This girl still loved to eat. At this moment, the sound of footsteps suddenly came from the side, and Yi Xian turned to look. Not far away, a woman was slowly walking over. White armor, scimitar. The person who had come was Princess Jianghu of the country of Jiang. As valiant and heroic as ever. Jianghu walked in front of Yi Xian and Jianghu, and said with a smile, I didn't disturb you, did I? Yi Xian smiled and said, not at all. Let's eat together. The corner of Jianghu's mouth curled up, and then she sat beside Jianghu. Jianghu looked at Yi Xian, are you serious about building an academy? Yi Xian nodded, Qingzhou is just the tip of the iceberg, I want to open an academy to the entire universe. Jianghu asked, and then? Yi Xian smiled and said, and then create a brand new order. Jianghu was silent. Jianghu suddenly said, it's very difficult. Yi Xian nodded, very difficult, but I have confidence. Jianghu was silent for a moment, and then he said, what can we help you with? Yi Xian smiled and said, manage Qingzhou well, and make Qingzhou better. Jianghu rolled his eyes at Yi Xian, and then he said, are you looking down on us for being weak? Yi Xian shook his head and smiled, little Jiu, this Qingzhou is also very important. Moreover, one day, I hope I can return here. Jianghu looked at Yi Xian, really? Yi Xian nodded. Jianghu was silent for a moment, and then he said, okay, we will wait for you to come back and retire. Yi Xian laughed. On the other side, Mo Yinchi stopped Bai Zai. Bai Zai looked at Mo Yinchi, and he frowned slightly. Mo Yinchi, why are you stopping me? Mo Yinchi said, Bandit Yi is chatting with Anji and the others now, don't disturb them. Bai Zai frowned slightly, why can't I disturb them? I haven't seen him for a long time. I'm going to see him. Mo Yinchi said in a low voice. They are a man and a woman chatting. Why are you going to interfere? Bai Zai said in a low voice. We are friends. Mo Yinchi had a headache. Bai Zai, when can you stop being such a straight man? I really have to give it to you. They want to have some alone time, do you understand? Bai Zai was silent for a moment, and then he said, do you think I will disturb them? Mo Yinchi nodded. You finally understand. Bai Zai frowned slightly. Why would I disturb them? Mo Yinchi's expression froze. At the back of the mountain, Yi Xian was roasting chicken, and Jianghu and Ji Anji each had a drumstick. Jianghu was eating quietly, but Ji Anji was wolfing down the food. Yi Xian looked at the two women, and he smiled. Cordial. He had to say, every time he returned to Qingzhou, he felt very cordial, a feeling that he did not have outside. Unfortunately, Yi Ling was not here. Yi Ling. Yi Xian sighed softly. He had not seen Yi Ling for a very long time. He did not know how that girl was doing now. But fortunately, that girl should be in the Yang clan now. In the Yang clan, no one would dare to bully her. And Sister Nian. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. There were many people he wanted to see, especially Sister Nian. After she left, there was no news of her. He did not know where she was now. Besides Sister Nian, there was also Tu. He had already asked emissary Zhang to help find Tu, but there was no news until now. At this moment, Jianghu looked at Yi Xian. What are you thinking about? Yi Xian said with a smile, I miss some old friends. Jianghu glanced at Yi Xian, and did not say anything. Yi Xian was about to speak. At this moment, the space in front of Yi Xian trembled slightly, and soon, Yi Xian frowned deeply. Luo world, the Yang clan came. And they did not come with good intentions. Yi Xian frowned. Was he really going to destroy the Yang clan? Yi Xian's gaze gradually turned cold. This time, he was very angry. 7017K. Chapter 2391. In front of Yi Xian, Little Nine asked, What's wrong? Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts and smiled. I might have to make a trip back. Little Nine said solemnly, So soon? Yi Xian nodded. Little Nine hesitated for a moment and said, Take care. Yi Xian stood up, walked over to Little Nine, and then hugged her lightly. Little Nine's body stiffened slightly, but it quickly returned to normal. After hugging Little Nine, Yi Xian turned to look at Ji Anji. Ji Anji blushed slightly, and then she turned around and looked away. Yi Xian laughed, walked over to Ji Anji, and then hugged her. So soft. That was Yi Xian's first impression. Little Nine was wearing armor, so it didn't feel much when hugged. However, Ji Anji was different. She was wearing a very simple white dress, so the hug felt very soft and comfortable. Yi Xian suddenly let go of Ji Anji. Yi Xian roared with laughter as he looked at Ji Anji's slightly red face, and then he said, I'll come back for all of you once I'm done with my business. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and vanished on the spot with a flash of sword light. Ji Anji gazed at the empty space in front of her in silence. Little Nine walked over to Ji Anji's side and smiled lightly. He'll come back. Ji Anji fell silent for a moment before he said, He took the drumstick away. Jianghu was speechless. Luo realm. At the entrance to a large hall, Qingqiu was lying on the chair that Yi Xian usually lay on. In her hand was an ancient book, and there was a cup of spirit tea beside her. An old man stood not too far away from Qingqiu. The old man wore a loose black robe, and his body was ramrod straight. His hair was white, and his gaze was sharp like a knife. His body carried a terrifying pressure. Behind the old man, there were 6 mysterious black-robed experts following behind him. And all 6 of them were at the High God realm. The old man in the lead was an expert at the 5th level of the High God realm. This lineup was enough to sweep away countless universe forces. At this moment, the old man was looking at Qing Qiu with an unfriendly expression. Qing Qiu didn't even care about this old man, and continued to read his book. Suddenly, a ray of light appeared here, and then it dispersed to reveal Yi Xian. The old man in the lead instantly withdrew his gaze when he saw Yi Xian, and then he gazed at Yi Xian with a calm expression. The grand celestial dimensions left protector Tsang greets the young master as well. The great heaven realm. Yi Xian laughed, "Where's your realm lord?" Tsang also said calmly, "The realm lord is busy." Busy. Yi Xian chuckled and said, "Do you need something from me?" Tsang glanced at Qing Qiu with a gloomy expression. Previously, someone killed Zhao Nie, the firmament world's realm lord. According to my investigation, the person who killed Zhao Nie is this woman. As he spoke, he pointed at Qing Qiu. Qing Qiu blinked and remained silent. Yi Xian smiled. "What? You want to take revenge for Zhao Nie?" Tsang said as well, "Young master, this woman killed a member of my Yang clan. I intend to take her back to the Hall of Justice and hand her over to be punished severely." Yi Xian walked slowly towards Tsang. "You intend to take Qing Qiu with you?" Tsang didn't show any weakness, and he met Yi Xian's gaze. "Yes." The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly. In the next moment, he suddenly vanished on the spot, and he'd fled this expanse of the universe when he appeared once more. The green profound sword suddenly flew out from Yi Xian's grasp. Instant of invincibility. This was the first time Yi Xian had utilized instant of invincibility in battle. The moment Yi Xian displayed this move, Tsang's pupils shrank abruptly. He clenched his fists, and an earth-shattering power suddenly swept out from his body. At this time, four afterimages carrying sword lights slashed out from Tsang's surroundings. Chi, 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 chi. In an instant, four tearing sounds resounded in the battlefield. At this time, Yi Xian returned to the real universe. Sword sheathed. Yi Xian turned around and walked to Qing Qiu's side. He picked up the cup of spiritual tea that Qing Qiu handed to him and took a sip. Behind him, Tsang's body suddenly split into pieces, and so did his soul. Directly erased. He didn't even have time to say his last words. In the battlefield, the 6 powerhouses were petrified on the spot. He was killed just like that. Tsang, a 5th-level high god, was gone just like that. The 6 powerhouses were completely dumbfounded. In the distance, Yi Xian looked at Qing Qiu and said with a smile, "What do you think of this sword technique?" Qing Qiu blinked and remained silent. Yi Xian said seriously, "I created it myself." Qing Qiu hurriedly gave him a thumbs up, "It's peerless." Yi Xian roared with laughter. Qing Qiu glanced at the 6 powerhouses in the distance, and then he said, "Did you kill them?" Yi Xian turned around to look at them. "Are all of you from the greater celestial dimension?" The 6 of them hurriedly nodded. Revenge? They didn't even dare think about it. No matter what, this person before them was the young master of the Yang clan. Even though he didn't have any position, he was still a young master. Yi Xian gazed silently at the 6 powerhouses in front of him. Actually, he knew why he hadn't been acknowledged by them. It was probably because his father had never acknowledged him in the Yang clan, and many people in the Yang clan probably felt that he was an illegitimate child. After all, Sister Shui had always been with his father, and many people should have regarded Sister Shui as the heir of the Yang clan, but his father had never acknowledged him in the Yang clan. Of course, his father must have never thought of this. The Yang clan was a big force, and a super force at that. The internal structure of such a force must be complicated. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian opened his palm, and the spatial ring that his father had given him appeared in his hand. This spatial ring should also be a symbol of status, but these people didn't recognize it. Could it be that their ranks were too low? Yi Xian felt a headache coming on. At this time, Qing Qiu suddenly smiled, "Brother, do you want to kill these 6 people?" Hearing this, the 6 people's faces suddenly became ugly. Yi Xian turned to look at the 6 people, and said with a smile, "Go." Go back and tell the Lord of the Greater Celestial Dimension that if he wants to cause trouble for me, tell him to come personally, don't send. Saying this, he frowned slightly. No need for him to come personally, I will go personally. Take me to the Greater Celestial Dimension. Hearing this, the 6 people hesitated. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. What's wrong? One of them quickly said, no problem, we will take young Lord to the Greater Celestial Dimension. Yi Xian nodded. At this time, Qing Qiu suddenly said, brother, I will go with you. Yi Xian was a little hesitant, and Qing Qiu quickly said, I will go to the Greater Celestial Dimension to inspect the Greater Celestial Dimension. Anyway, the academy in the Luo world has been established, with them there will be no problem. Yi Xian shook his head with a smile, all right. Then let's go together. Qing Qiu immediately smiled sweetly. Yi Xian looked at the 6 people, let's go. The 6 people nodded, and then disappeared on the spot with Yi Xian. In the space-time tunnel, Qing Qiu was a little curious, brother, don't the Yang clan know you? Yi Xian smiled, yes, but father probably didn't mention me in the Yang clan, so they don't take me seriously. And I don't know where the headquarters of the Yang clan is. Saying this, he shook his head with a smile. Needless to say, he was a little ashamed. As the young lord of the Yang clan, he actually didn't know where the headquarters of the Yang clan was. This was really a failure. Qing Qiu nodded slightly, deep in thought. Not long after, the 6 people brought Yi Xian and his sister to the Greater Celestial Dimension. When entering the Greater Celestial Dimension, Yi Xian saw many floating cities. Each city was like a giant hand entrenched in the starry sky, extremely spectacular. In this world, he sensed many powerful auras. The martial arts civilization of this Greater Celestial Dimension was obviously much higher than the Luo world. Right at this moment, an old man suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian and the others. The 6 people by Yi Xian's side hurriedly bowed respectfully when they saw this old man. Greetings, Left Protector. Left Guardian. The old man ignored the 6 people, his eyes directly fell on Yi Xian. A moment later, he said, Greetings, young lord. Although he addressed him as young lord, there was not the slightest respect in his expression and attitude. Yi Xian smiled and said, Who is the right guardian to you? The old man's expression was calm, colleague. Yi Xian smiled, Congratulations. The old man frowned slightly, Congratulations? Yi Xian blinked, Of course, because now you are the only guardian in the Greater Celestial Dimension. The old man was slightly stunned. The next moment, his expression changed instantly. Obviously, he had understood Yi Xian's meaning. Left Guardian had been killed. Yi Xian walked slowly to Left Guardian, Bring me to see your realm lord. Left Guardian looked at Yi Xian, not saying a word. Yi Xian sighed in a low voice, I really can't understand, even if you want to support my sister as the heir, can you first investigate my relationship with my sister? Or, can't you go and ask my sister first when you're deliberately targeting me? I dare to bet that you definitely haven't asked my sister. You are all guessing my sister's thoughts, thinking that she is very happy that you are targeting me, right? Left Guardian was silent. Yi Xian continued, As far as I know, your current level in the Yang clan is still considered the bottom. Since you are all at the bottom, why are you standing on the side? Even if I don't get along with my sister, do you think that is something you can interfere with? Please, use your brain, will you? I am my father's biological son, I have the purest mad demon bloodline in the Yang clan. Even if I am a waste, I am not someone you can target, understand? Just like now, I dare to kill you, but do you dare to kill me? Left Guardian did not speak, because there was nothing to say. Because as Yi Xian said, Yi Xian dared to attack them, but even if they were given 100 guts, they would not dare to attack Yi Xian. Yi Xian was after all the green-robed sword master's biological son. Yi Xian continued, You have cultivated to this point, so you are not a brainless person. The reason why you treat me like this is very simple, as I said, you want to stand on the side of my sister, or rather, your boss is standing on the side of my sister, but, his lips curled up, how do you know that my relationship with my sister is not good? What if we have a very good relationship as siblings? At that time, wouldn't you be like a pig looking in the mirror, no longer human? Left Guardian was silent for a moment, then bowed slightly. Young master is right. Just now this subordinate was rude, please forgive me, young master. As he said this, he bowed respectfully again. Yi Xian patted Left Guardian's shoulder. It's a small matter. I am not a narrow-minded person. The Left Protector felt relieved. Meanwhile, Yi Xian said, from now on, I'll take over the Grand Heavenly Realm. In the name of my father, I dismiss the Realm Lord of the Great Heaven Realm. From now on, I am the Realm Lord of the Great Heaven Realm. What kind of expression is that? Is there a problem with the son inheriting his father's business? Left Guardian. 7017K. Chapter 2392. Hearing Yi Xian's words, the Left Protector was put in a difficult position. Young master. Well. Yi Xian smiled. What belongs to my father is mine. If the Lord of the Great Heaven Realm is not willing, ask him to look for me. After saying that, he walked away with Qingqiu. The Left Protector sighed softly. What was going on? In fact, they could not figure out the Yang clan's attitude. Who did the Yang clan want to make the crown prince? If they wanted Yi Xian to be the crown prince, but the green shirt sword master had never announced it to the Yang clan. He had not even mentioned Yi Xian's existence. In the hearts of many Yang clan members, they naturally recognized Yang Nianxue. After all, Yang Nianxue had grown up in the Yang clan and had always followed the green shirt sword master. As for Yi Xian, he had only recently appeared out of nowhere. If they recognized Yi Xian, they were afraid of angering the big shots on Yang Nianxue's side. After all, Yi Xian had many super big shots who supported her. Difficult. The Left Protector sighed softly. Yi Xian did not care about the Left Protector and the others. He had already entered the Great Heaven City with Qingqiu. The Great Heaven City was the most prosperous city in the entire Great Heaven Realm. After entering the city, the view was extremely wide. The buildings in the city were very far apart, so at first glance, it was very spacious and comfortable. And Yi Xian also found that there were a lot of people in the city. This city could accommodate at least tens of millions of people. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian suddenly said, Left Protector. As soon as he said that, the Left Protector appeared next to Yi Xian. After the conversation just now, the Left Protector's attitude towards Yi Xian had changed greatly. As Yi Xian had said, no matter how Yi Xian and Yang Nianxue fought, it was not something that small fries like them could meddle in. If that was the case, why should they choose sides? After all, the right protector had already been killed. Yi Xian glanced at the people in the city and said, Does the Yang clan select outstanding geniuses from this city every year? The Left Protector nodded. Yes. What a powerful force needs is fresh blood. I don't know about other places, but in the Great Heaven Realm, we pick out some outstanding geniuses and monsters every few years and nurture them. Yi Xian nodded. He turned his head and stared at the Left Protector. Your Realm Lord is still not coming over to see me? The Left Protector bitterly smiled. The Realm Lord is not in the city. Before young master came, he had already left the Great Heaven Realm. Yi Xian frowned. Left? The Left Protector nodded. Yi Xian was a little curious. Where did he go? The Left Protector shook his head. I don't know. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian smiled and said, He wouldn't be deliberately avoiding me, right? The Left Protector smiled awkwardly and did not dare to reply. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Let's go to the city governor's estate. The Left Protector hurriedly nodded. All right. As soon as he finished speaking, he led the way. Meanwhile, Qingqiu suddenly said, Big brother, I'll go take a look. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, Be careful. Qingqiu smiled. all right. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and vanished. Yi Xian glanced at the left protector, and the left protector hurriedly waved his hand. In next to no time, 3 High God Realm experts followed behind him. In next to no time, the left protector led Yi Xian to the city governor's estate. Needless to say, the city governor's estate was really huge. It was like an imperial palace, and it was extremely luxurious. Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings and said, "It's huge. Not bad. It's suitable for an academy." The left protector was slightly embarrassed and did not dare to speak. Meanwhile, an old man suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian, and he gazed coldly at Yi Xian. "This is the city governor's estate. Outsiders are not allowed to trespass here." The left protector hurriedly said, "Brother Zhou, this is the young master." The old man's face remained expressionless. "No one." The left protector's face instantly froze. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Left protector, is the Grand Celestial Dimension considered to belong to the Yang clan?" The left protector replied, "Of course." Yi Xian nodded, and then he suddenly vanished on the spot. A ray of light appeared in front of Yi Xian, and then Yi Xian instantly appeared in outer space. A moment later, 4 afterimages crisscrossed Brother Zhou's body. Instant of invincibility. The moment Yi Xian unleashed this attack, Mr. Zhou's expression changed drastically. He opened his palm, and a black shield suddenly appeared in front of him. However, as the 4 afterimages appeared, the black shield suddenly shattered. Following that, 4 rays of sword gleam crisscrossed Mr. Zhou's body and slashed him. Hiss! Hiss! 4 ripping sounds resounded, and Brother Zhou and his shield were sliced into a few pieces that scattered on the ground. Blood splattered everywhere. At this moment, Yi Xian had already appeared not far behind Lao Zhou. Sheath his sword. Yi Xian walked slowly towards the distance. "Clean this place up. I don't like the smell of blood." The left protector was petrified on the spot. At this moment, the left protector was completely dumbfounded. Instant kill. One should know that Elder Zhou was a 5th level upper immortal stage powerhouse. In the entire Grand Celestial Dimension, an expert of this level was second only to a realm lord. However, he was killed before he could even fight back against Yi Xian's terrifying attack. It was too terrifying. The left protector was terrified to the extreme. At this moment, he believed that even the Realm Lord would not be able to take that sword attack from Yi Xian, let alone him. The Sword Master's son. The left protector suddenly turned around and roared, "Why aren't you cleaning up? Don't you know that the young master doesn't like the smell of blood?" Soon, someone hurried over to clean up. As for Yi Xian, he slumped on the chair as soon as he entered the hall. Weak. He had used the instant of invincibility twice in a row in a short period of time. The consumption was too great. Based on his current strength, his limit should be 3 times. However, he could not predict the consequences if he used it again. Because he was already very weak now. However, with the instant of invincibility and the Qingxian sword, he was simply invincible. Not to mention these experts, even the modified Xiao Ta would not be able to withstand it. Perhaps only Aria's battle armor could barely withstand it. At this moment, the left protector appeared at the door. He bowed slightly. "Young master." Yi Xian took out a pill and consumed it. Then, he said, "Come in." The left protector walked into the hall. Meanwhile, Yi Xian's expression had returned to normal. Yi Xian said, "I'm taking over the Grand Celestial Dimension. If anyone is dissatisfied, kill them for me." The left protector hesitated and said, "Realm Lord." Then, Yi Xian looked at the left protector calmly, "If they are dissatisfied, then kill them too." The left protector was speechless. Yi Xian suddenly said, "What is a world stronger than the Grand Celestial Dimension?" The left protector said in a deep voice, "That should be the middle world. There are super experts above the upper god realm there. Be it the upper god realm, the firmament realm, the Luo realm, or the Grand Celestial Dimension, they are all under the control of the middle world. Apart from that, as far as I know, the middle world controls about 100 universes similar to the grand celestial dimension. The realm lord of the middle world, no, not the realm lord, but the universe god. A universe god is equivalent to a small duke in the secular world. With one command, he can mobilize countless troops and experts instantly. Universe god. Yi Xian smiled. The realm lord of the grand celestial dimension went to the middle world, right? The left protector hesitated and nodded. Yi Xian chuckled and said softly, in that case, the universe gods in the middle world can barely touch the core circle of the Yang clan. Am I right? The left protector shook his head and smiled bitterly. I don't know about that. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian said softly in his heart, Xiao Ta, you have stayed with Dad before. Do you know about the Yang clan? Xiao Ta said, I don't know. Yi Xian frowned. Xiao Ta said, young master, let me tell you, the Yang clan's power was definitely not created by master. Master has no interest in creating a power. Hence, the one who created this power must be Mistress Su. If it was really created by Mistress Su, then Master Xue is really the legal heir. Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. Xiao Ta said again, actually, young master, why do you care about the Yang clan? Don't forget, you still have Sister Tianming behind you. Comparing the Yang clan to Sister Tianming, under the situation where master doesn't make a move, isn't there a huge difference? Yi Xian was silent. Xiao Ta continued, but, I think, master should want you to inherit the Yang clan. Yi Xian said with a smile, why? Xiao Ta said, that ring, the ring that master left for you, was once worn by master. Obviously, his attitude is very clear. But, these fools' level is not high enough, they don't recognize this ring. I think, this ring, only the true core circle of the Yang clan will recognize, for example, the existence of Sister Tingyin's level. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian said, then, what do you think I should do now? If this continues, I think, I will have to kill a lot of people. What are you afraid of? Xiao Ta suddenly said angrily, young master, I really don't like you now. Did you read too much? Yi Xian was stunned. Xiao Ta continued to say angrily, when did you become so hot-blooded? What about the Yi Xian who killed people when he had a bad thought in Qingqing? What about the Yi Xian who dared to slaughter millions of living beings for his sister? You have to remember, whether it is this great celestial realm or that middle world, they are just subordinates of the Yang clan. In the words of the Milky Way, they are just workers for our family. A worker dares to bully the boss son, isn't this going against the heavens? It is not you who wants to mess with them, it is they who want to mess with you first. What are you afraid of? Kill them. Exterminate their clan. Kill a group of strong people, then they will know to respect you. What are you still worried about? Yi Xian was silent. Xiao Ta continued, you are the young master, you are master's son, you are the legal heir of the Yang clan, but they do not recognize you. What is this? Young master, you have to remember one thing, and that is, these people, without master's protection, they are not even worth a fart. And why did master agree to them creating this Yang clan? Why did he give you that ring? Very obviously, he wanted to help you. Taking 10,000 steps back, even if master did not have this kind of thought, then you do not need to care so much. If people do not offend us, we will not offend them. Not to mention a few insignificant subordinates of the Yang clan, even if master wants to harm you, then you have to kill him. What is wrong with killing one's father? Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. Dedeabi suddenly said, Broken Ta, let me remind you, you have to think before you speak. You. Xiao Ta suddenly said angrily, you broken pen, don't talk to me. If you have the guts, you would not have been scared by Sister Tianming's sword and did not dare to speak. F***ck. Dedeabi said angrily, Broken Ta, don't challenge my bottom line, do you believe that I will immediately arrange for you? Please arrange for me. Xiao Ta said angrily, other than Sister Tianming, who am I afraid of? Dedeabi still wanted to say something, but Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Don't talk nonsense, you and your master together. I am invincible, you master and servant do as you please." Dedeabi. 7017K. Chapter 2393. Hearing Xiao Ta's words, Yi Xian was completely speechless. This small pagoda couldn't have been drinking, right? So arrogant? This was ridiculous. Dedeabi had already started fighting with Xiao Ta. Yi Xian ignored the two fellows. After strolling around the city lord's mansion, he finally came to a study. This was the study of the lord of the great heaven realm. There were all kinds of books. Yi Xian walked up to a bookshelf, took out an ancient book, and opened it. Shiqiu. This was an ancient book about the history of the great heaven universe. Every universe had its own history. To Yi Xian's disappointment, he wanted to see the history of the entire universe. From Qing, he knew that there were two universes. One was the current universe, and the other was the boundless universe. What was the history of the current universe? Yi Xian was very curious. Unfortunately, there was no such book in the entire study. Most of the ancient books here only recorded the history of the great heaven universe and some people. However, he had gained a lot because he now had a general understanding of the entire great heaven universe. Because of this, he decided not to go to the medium world. Instead, he stayed here to develop the great heaven realm. The great heaven realm was too big. After coming out of the study, Yi Xian began to take over the great heaven realm. The whole great celestial realm was shocked by Yi Xian's admission. "Young master." This place was not like other small places. Therefore, everyone knew of Yi Xian's existence. However, Yi Xian's sudden takeover made many people uncomfortable. Therefore, there were many who paid lip service to it. Great Heaven Hall. This Great Heaven Hall was the place where the Great Heaven Realm usually discussed matters. At this moment, hundreds of people had gathered in the hall. These people were equivalent to secular officials and were in charge of the big and small matters of the Great Heaven Realm. Inside the hall, everyone looked at Yi Xian, who was sitting in the seat of the Lord of the Great Heaven Realm, with strange expressions. Beside Yi Xian was the left protector and messenger Zhang, who had just come out of seclusion. At this moment, Envoy Zhang was already a second-stage expert. In this great heaven realm, he was actually not considered to be at the top. Yi Xian glanced at the crowd below him, and then he said, "I'll take over the Grand Celestial Dimension in my father's name. From today onward, the Grand Celestial Dimension doesn't have a realm master, only a young master." With that, he swept his gaze across the crowd. "I'm done. Who agrees and who objects?" Who agreed? Who objected? As soon as he said this, the hall suddenly quietened down. Everyone looked at each other. The left protector immediately became nervous. He knew Yi Xian's temper and strength. This young master was not a pushover. At this moment, an old man and a middle-aged man walked out. The old man in the lead said, "I object, young master." Suddenly, the sword at Yi Xian's waist was unsheathed. Buzz! A sword cry resounded. Instant invincibility. At the instant that Yi Xian struck, the expressions of all the experts here changed. The old man who bore the brunt of the attack was even more shocked, and he hurriedly said, "I agree. Young master, I agree. I..." Hiss. Hiss. Before he could finish speaking, the old man's body had been sliced into pieces. Instantly killed and wiped out. Everyone, Yi Xian suddenly sighed in a low voice. "Why do you speak so slowly? Speak faster in your next life." Everyone, Yi Xian looked at the middle-aged man who had walked out with the old man. "What do you want to say?" The middle-aged man's voice trembled. "Young master, will those who object die?" Yi Xian said seriously, "How is that possible? I'm not that kind of person." The middle-aged man hesitated for a moment, and then he pointed at the pool of blood in front of him. Then Yi Xian looked at the middle-aged man with a calm expression. Do you want to talk about something else? As he spoke, the green profound sword in his hand suddenly trembled. Seeing this, the middle-aged man's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly said, Young master, I have no objections. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. As he spoke, he retreated to the side, and cold sweat flowed down his back. This young master is not a good person. Yi Xian glanced at the people in the hall with a calm expression. My father and I are both democratic people. If you have any objections, you can speak them out. Really? Everyone fell silent. Seeing that no one spoke, Yi Xian stood up and said, I now announce that I will establish an academy in the Great Heaven Realm. As he spoke, he turned to look at Emissary Jiang. I now appoint Emissary Jiang as the Lord of the Great Heaven Realm, and his salary will be doubled. Besides that, he doesn't need to listen to anyone else in the Yang clan besides me. Emissary Jiang was overjoyed when he heard this, and he hurriedly knelt on one knee. Thank you, young master. The Lord of the Great Heaven Realm. He knew that this was a great opportunity for him. The Great Heaven Realm was not something the Upper God Realm could compare to. After becoming the Lord of the Great Heaven Realm, he would have countless opportunities and resources. Of course, more importantly, Yi Xian obviously wanted to start cultivating his own confidants, and he would be Yi Xian's first confidant in the Yang clan. In the hall, everyone looked at each other. They were naturally not convinced by this emissary Jiang. After all, although Yi Xian was the young master, Yi Xian did not have any position. Although they were not convinced, the generals tacitly did not say anything. They were afraid of death. Yi Xian looked at emissary Jiang. You will handle the matters of the academy. If there is anything you don't understand, you can ask Qingqiu. She is the court head of Wuyuan. Emissary Jiang nodded. This subordinate understands. Yi Xian looked at the left protector. Help me inform the middle world that from now on, the Great Heaven Realm is under my control, not theirs. If they are not convinced, they can come and mess with me. After all, I am my father's only son. As long as they are not afraid that my father will die, they can do whatever they want. With that, he turned and left. The left protector was speechless. After Yi Xian left, emissary Jiang asked everyone to stay. Emissary Jiang glanced at everyone and said indifferently, I know you are not convinced by me, but it doesn't matter. I don't need you to be convinced. I just need you to listen to my orders. I will say it here. If you dare to disobey any of my orders, I will advise the young master to dismiss all of you. And you will never be allowed to enter the Yang clan again. You know the temper of the young master. If he drives you out, I want to see who dares to accept you. Everyone was silent. Emissary Jiang continued, the first thing we need to do now is to establish an academy, Guanxian Academy. From now on, you will find all the learned people in the Great Heaven Realm, regardless of their realm, only their knowledge. Invite them to the city lord's mansion. In addition, I need a large number of outstanding talents. Although everyone was not very convinced by emissary Jiang, they still followed his instructions. No one wanted to provoke Yi Xian at this time. As for Yi Xian himself, he left the Great Heaven Realm and returned to Azure Province. However, this time, he did not go to the academy. Instead, he went to Tuoba Yan's palace. Some things did not have to be done often, but they could not be avoided. When there was a choice, one had to do it. If he was single, it would be a different story. In the middle world. At this moment, a meeting was held in the middle world. This meeting gathered hundreds of people. It could be said that all the influential people in the middle world were present. The Great Heaven Realm's Lord Zhang Feng was also present. In the hall, Zhang Feng's expression was extremely ugly. Because his fiefdom was gone. He had already received news that Yi Xian was now in control of the entire Great Heaven Realm. He dared not voice his anger. After all, he was the young master. He could only come to the middle world to seek help. At this moment, an old man appeared above the hall. Everyone present hurriedly bowed at the sight of this old man. Greetings, Lord C. Lord C. That was an existence that was beneath a single world god in the middle world. He was merely inferior to a world god. Lord C glanced at them and said, without the orders of a world god, no one is allowed to head to the middle world to act against the young master. He paused for a moment before he continued, all of you must obey the young master's orders. All of them were stunned when they heard this. Meanwhile, an old man suddenly spoke in a low voice, Lord C, the young master is clearly acting rashly. Are we just going to allow him to do as he pleases? Lord C gazed at the old man, then why don't you go kill him? The old man's face froze. Lord C glanced coldly at them and said, remember that he's the young master. Even though the sword master didn't appoint him to any position, he's still the young master, and we can't go against him. The old man bowed slightly and didn't dare speak another word. Zhang Feng suddenly said, what if he comes to the middle world and intends to take control of it? The expressions of everyone within the hall became strange, and then they gazed at Lord C. Lord C fell silent for a moment before he said, it's fine to play around, but it would be going too far if he goes too far. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. The corners of Zhang Feng's mouth curled up slightly. Obviously, the attitude of the middle world was that Yi Xian could play around in the middle world, but the middle world wasn't a place that Yi Xian could touch. Moreover, he knew that Yi Xian would come to the middle world sooner or later. The corners of Zhang Feng's mouth curled up slightly. After Lord C left the hall, he arrived at a dense forest, and there was a bamboo house behind the forest. Lord C arrived before the bamboo house and bowed slightly, World God, should I report the young master? After a short moment of silence, a voice resounded slowly from within the bamboo house. There's no need. Lord C spoke in a low voice, I've investigated. The young master is establishing some sort of academy, and he actually took the firmament world, upper god world, heaven world, and heaven world for his own use to establish that academy of his. His actions, as he spoke, he frowned. After a moment of silence, the world god said, we can't touch this person, but the others, hearing this, Lord C was stunned. Very quickly, he bowed slightly, I understand. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Naturally, they couldn't touch Yi Xian, but what if someone else did? If the young master died at the hands of someone else, then what did it have to do with them? On the contrary, they could take revenge for the young master, and gain merit. Within the bamboo house, a voice suddenly rang out, an illegitimate child, doesn't know how to endure and wants to directly take over. How ridiculous. P.S. I want to do it, but I know that I will definitely be scolded. I'm in a tough spot. Chapter 2394. Inside the palace. Yi Xian lay on the big bed with a naked Tuoba Yen in his arms. Tuoba Yen lay quietly in Yi Xian's arms with his eyes slightly closed. Yi Xian looked at the distant sky with a faint smile on his face. It was very comfortable. At this moment, Tuoba Yen suddenly said softly, you're awake? Yi Xian nodded. Tuoba Yen gently rubbed against Yi Xian's chest and said softly, do you want to continue sleeping? Yi Xian laughed. Okay. With that, he turned over. Soon, beautiful sounds rang out in the hall. As for the scale, everyone could imagine for themselves. Late in the morning. At noon, Yi Xian left the hall. He stood in front of the hall and looked up at the distant sky with a happy mood. At this moment, Tuoba Yen suddenly walked behind Yi Xian and gently wrapped her arms around Yi Xian's waist. Then, she leaned against Yi Xian and said softly, are you leaving? Yi Xian nodded. Although the academy had Qingqiu, he could not leave everything to Qingqiu. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian opened his palm. The sword intent of the human world suddenly appeared in his hand. This sword intent was much stronger than before. It could be said that he could now easily kill a soul formation expert with his sword intent alone. If he used instant of invincibility, he could easily kill an exalted god. But he was only at the soul formation realm. His current goal was to become an exalted god. Thinking of this, Yi Xian opened his palm and Dedeabi appeared in his hand. As if thinking of something, he suddenly said, "Brother Bai, how can I use you to observe the fate of others?" After a moment of silence, Dedeabi said, "What are you going to do?" Yi Xian said with a smile, "Brother Bai, are you really that uncooperative?" Dedeabi was silent. Xiao Ta said, "Young master, this guy is irresponsible and hides everything from you. Just let it go. With me and little soul here, what value does this stupid pen have?" Yi Xian laughed. It seemed that Xiao Ta and Dedeabi were not on good terms. Dedeabi suddenly said, "The heavenly secret must not be revealed. Once it is revealed, it will backfire." Yi Xian was a little curious, "By who?" Dedeabi said in a deep voice, "Tendo." Dedeabi said softly, "I am not afraid of ordinary Tendo." The great Tao brush said softly, "I am naturally not afraid of ordinary heavenly Taos. However, there is a heavenly Tao that I have to fear. I am not afraid of ordinary Tendo. However, there is a Tendo that I have to be afraid of." Dedeabi said softly. The word Tao in the 6-syllable Sanskrit. This Tao is the head of all Tao. Tendo is under its jurisdiction. If I reveal the heavenly secret, I will also be arranged. Yi Xian asked, "Does it dare to arrange for me?" Dedeabi was silent for a moment and said, "It dare not." Yi Xian nodded, "So, do you understand?" Dedeabi, Yi Xian suddenly said, "I want to know Xiao Ta's future. Can you tell me about it?" Dedeabi was silent for a moment and said, "Die a horrible death." Yi Xian, Xiao Ta suddenly flew into a rage, f*ck. Soon, the pen and the tower began to fight again. Yi Xian was a little speechless. He realized that Xiao Ta and Dedeabi were at odds. At this moment, Tuoba Yen said softly, "When are you leaving?" Yi Xian collected his thoughts and said with a smile, "Can't bear for me to leave?" Tuoba Yen nodded. Yi Xian laughed, turned around, and walked toward the inner hall with Tuoba Yen in his arms. At the same time, a pen and a tower flew out of the palace. Several days later, Yi Xian left the palace. This time, unlike before, he walked out holding the wall. Yi Xian walked to the stone steps and sat down. His whole body slumped on the stone steps. Yi Xian looked at the sky and said softly, "I'm tired." There were some things that needed to be done, but they could not be done every day. At this moment, Dedeabi flew back in front of Yi Xian, and Xiao Ta also flew back in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian glanced at Dedeabi and Xiao Ta. He realized that this Dedeabi was not in his original body and could not beat Xiao Ta. It should be said that he could not do anything to Xiao Ta. Xiao Ta's defense was only second to Arya's armor. At this moment, Xiao Ta suddenly laughed and said, "Stupid pen, I am invincible, invincible." "Ha!" Yi Xian, Dedeabi said in a deep voice, "Do you dare to come to the Milky Way?" Xiao Ta laughed, "My sister Tianming is in the Milky Way. If you have the ability, go and fight her." Dedeabi said angrily, f*ck, "Can you stop mentioning others? If you have the guts, come to the Milky Way alone and fight me. If I don't kill you, I am not a pen." Xiao Ta sneered, "Then why don't you come here?" Dedeabi said angrily, "I can't come out." Xiao Ta asked, "Why can't you come out?" After a moment of silence, Dedeabi said, "Don't talk so much nonsense. Just say that you don't want to come to the Milky Way." Xiao Ta said, "I'm not coming." Dedeabi said sarcastically, "Are you afraid?" Xiao Ta laughed, "No matter how much nonsense you talk, you can't change the fact that my master is more powerful than your master." Dedeabi said lightly, "Stupid pen, I have to tell you, your master is powerful, but you are not. Do you know who my master is? Do you know why you disappeared for so long last time? Do you know? Do you really know? Xiao Ta was silent. Suddenly, he regretted it a little. At this moment, he realized that he was a little arrogant just now. It was fine to provoke this Dadeabi, but this Dadeabi's master, after a moment of silence, Xiao Ta said, I will follow the young master will protect me. He was a little lacking in confidence. Yi Xian needed someone to take care of him. Dadeabi sneered, just you wait. Just you wait to disappear again. Xiao Ta, Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Then, he entered Xiao Ta. After entering Xiao Ta, Yi Xian swallowed some spiritual energy. After his body recovered, he decided that he had to recultivate his body in the future. Otherwise, some things could not be done for too long. It would take at least 10 days before he could do his best. Recollecting his thoughts, Yi Xian took out Dadeabi. Using Dadeabi, he directly reached the high god realm. Now that he had Xiao Ta, he did not need to be afraid of an unstable foundation because he had enough time to stabilize his realm. Yi Xian immediately sensed a terrifying power after reaching the high god level. At the same time, his human realm sword spirit suddenly boiled up at this moment. High god realm, what he needed was the power of faith. The faith of all living beings, then he would become a god. High god realm. After Yi Xian's power of faith boiled, he began to crazily swallow the universe veins. The universe veins in his body began to disappear at a very terrifying speed. In the end, they turned into countless spiritual energy and entered his body. Boom! The world in Xiao Ta's body gradually trembled. The aura was too strong. Yi Xian clenched his fists tightly. Terrifying auras continuously surged out of his body. These powerful auras became stronger and stronger. In the end, the space-time that Yi Xian was in directly boiled, but very quickly, it returned to normal. Xiao Ta stabilized the surrounding space. At this time, Yi Xian's human world sword intense suddenly surged. When the human world sword intense surged, the surrounding space began to tremble again. Human world sword intent was equivalent to the power of faith. At this time, Yi Xian's sword intent was slowly changing. Outside Xiao Ta's body. Somewhere in space, a space-time suddenly split open. The next moment, a group of black-robed people walked out. The black-robed person in the lead held a long spear in his hand. This black-robed person in the lead looked around. Finally, he looked down. Below us is Qingzhou. Beside the black-robed person, an old man said respectfully, replying to Kill Master, it is. Kill Master frowned, the civilization level of this universe is so low. The old man nodded. Yes. After a moment of silence, the Kill Master said, that universe god offered such a high price for us to kill a young man. Come to think of it, the young man is not simple. As he spoke, he looked at the old man. Have you investigated his background? The old man smiled and said, I have. There's a woman in a plain dress behind this person. I've asked the expert of the drunken immortal and who once fought that woman here. That woman was only a great sword immortal at that time. Even though so many years have passed, to what extent could she have grown? So, there's nothing to worry about. There was nothing to worry about. 7017K. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.